Hello.
Good evening from Bonnie, Scotland.
Yeah, and over from good old Tejas as well. It's gotten hot.
Tejas,
it's that time
is it
of year.
hot? Is it? Oh,
It is.
Yes, I'm in Scotland, obviously, and that means that it's not hot in the slightest. Although I do have my air conditioning on because it was warm enough that when I came into the room here, the computer, which I'd left on like a fool, had been pumping out heat. So when I came into the garage, I was like, oh, no, dying. So that's Scottish hot, i.e. we just had the heating on. Yeah, not hot in the slightest over here.
I wish I lived somewhere that didn't get super hot. That would make me so happy. But in any event, it's Tuesday, which means it's a lovely bonus stream day, and we're gonna be making something. We're gonna be doing something today. Go ahead.
No, I'm still 3/4 asleep. You can go.
We had some hemming and hawing about it, and weren't really sure what exactly we were going to do. So I went and sort of looked at lists and ideas and wandered a bit and was like, oh, you know what? Okay, we haven't done a build of something in a little bit, and then we weren't really sure what we wanted to do a build a thing of. So you may have noticed if you've been sitting in the lobby that the stream was something different a little bit earlier, which was that. So yesterday, literally just I was streaming Final Fantasy and I was like, we'll do a Tomb King, I guess. And then me and Andy sitting and had a chat about it. And after yapping about it for a while, we went, okay, wait. Okay, we've done an undead character before, but you know what? We haven't built. Let's build something really new, which is that we haven't built a dwarf.
Dwarfs. And you know, in celebration of a certain Ryan's absolutely delightful new haircut, it seems only right that we dive a little bit into the dwarf side of things rather than just sticking with yet another undead character. So we'd already built a vampire lord in the past. So after we discussed it backwards and forwards a bit, we were like, yeah, let's do a dwarfy thing. Because we've not built a dwarfy thing yet in our let's build a style stream. So I'm particularly looking forward to this because it's something that on the roleplay side of things happens relatively frequently. In that, as you move through the editions, each one of the editions added a slew of new extra detail. The first edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay basically established much of what we know already. The second edition took what had been written and then embellished it. The third edition added a new hold entirely in the Grey Mountains, Karaz, and that got added. And for the fourth edition, we were in this strange place where we had multiple competing editions, each of which had a different versions of where various holds were. One of the most famous being Carrick Ziflin. Carrick Ziflin got moved by an enormous amount of distance. It used to be down in the south near the vaults, and it got moved all the way up to the Grey Mountains, not that far away from Bretonia. Well, it's on the border between Bretonia and Reichland. And it was in the middle of an entirely new place. And we had a discussion as to where to place it with Games Workshop, because we were like, it's in the wrong place. Total War has it in the wrong place. This is where it is in all your maps. Where do you want it to go? And they went, and I said, let's just put it in the Total War place because that looks cool. So we did. So Carrick Ziflin just moved. And as you work your way through building up your dwarfy hold, you also have the requirement to build up someone to lead them. So that's largely where we're starting off today.
Yeah. So to be clear, we're doing something a little different today. Something we haven't actually done before, which is that we're giving all of y'all, our dear listeners and viewers, we're going to give y'all a lot of power to determine what exactly it is that we're making, which we've done in the past, but this one's a little more extreme, which is that me and Andy really couldn't settle on whether we wanted to do a place or a person. So we said, you know what? Screw it. We'll just let everyone else decide.
Indeed.
So once we get kind of past our little interest here, so once we hit like the 10-minute mark, we'll do our first poll, which is basically that y'all are going to decide whether or not today we're building a person, an entity that is going to be a new figure among the Dawi that has existed somewhere in the world, or be if you're going to be building a place, if we're going to be building a new hold that exists somewhere else in the world, which there's a lot of places that have holds or are said to have holds that are even active, like Mountains of Morn are said to have holds, and we know dick all about them.
So before we start the poll, there's the obvious first steps that we need to take. What would you potentially be doing on either side? And as Ryan says, we're going to largely leave this up to you. So we're going to need you to start dropping in comments. What would you like to see? One thing we definitely won't be doing is this, because we never get what we want done in time. So our polls will make a difference. And if we dive into location, we will not be building the characters. We might say there is obviously a king or a queen or a whatever in the individual places, but we will not be diving into details. If we're on the character side, we obviously have to decide what sort of character it is. It could be anything. It could be a dwarf king or queen, a ruler of a hold. It could be a great explorer who moves from place to place. It could be someone who's doing something completely different, perhaps attempting to utilize the winds of magic in a new way, or perhaps attempting to, I don't know, forge out into the oceans or establish colonies in a different part of the world. Each one of these characters could be something completely different. And the idea, the core nugget of what that character will be as we're prospecting our way through and attempting to mine out some pretty cool details left in your hands. So please do drop it down into the comments, ideas that you think would be cool. Equally, if you go onto the other side, if it's a location, it doesn't just need to be a hold. It could be a skyport where various gyrocopters and thunder barges et al. All port in. It could be one of the distant holds in the middle of Lustria up in the mountains there, over in the Mountains of Morn, as already suggested. It could be an underwater base. That would be pretty damn weird. It could be detailing one of the Norse holds, because hardly ever are they even touched. So we could dive into what the Norse offer. So we've got different types of suggestions on both sides. Drop it into the comments what you think you would prefer.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna grab some super chat stuff that came in. Donovan, I saw your follow-up comment to this. So unfortunately, I hadn't seen that the topic have changed, but this is something we will come around to the Tomb King thing.
We will,
especially because one of the things that I wanted to do with the Tomb King thing, and I was like, I'd have to talk to Andy about this because it'd be a big thing, would be developing like a dynasty as opposed to an individual, which would be a lot of fun. That's something I'd like to do probably before the end of the summer. So just hang on to this. Thank you. Hang on to this. And we will revisit that idea before long. Hoplite. Safe to say, the Scots have been America's favorite World Cup guest. I think Boston might adopt the Tartan Army. It's
been hilarious watching all of the various Tartan Army folks bouncing around Boston, singing, drinking, doing what they always do. For me, this is just what I grow up with. The pipers are out there and everyone's singing and giving it whatever, and it's super cool. However, a friend of mine and I were discussing a part, and then we caught something online as well that basically said, because we have done so poorly internationally in sport, and we have done terribly, because it's not just that we're a tiny nation, we don't have a great deal of funding for all of our sports stuff. The export of Scotland has been, broadly speaking, terrible. And because we're not an independent nation like, say, Ireland, that is well known all over the place, Ireland has taken up many of the slots that the Scottish position used to take. For example, you see often Irish folks in other countries going around with bagpipes, where bagpipes are broadly a Scottish thing, much like kilts are broadly a Scottish thing, but we don't need to go into the history of this. And it's a little bit like, because of the World Cup, the rest of the world has suddenly seen that Scotland suddenly exists again. And suddenly they're like, oh, but they're cool, aren't they? And like, yeah, we rock.
Yeah, I was doing something downstairs, I think it was yesterday, and my father was watching baseball. My father was watching the Boston Red Sox. And there was a bunch of random Scots in the audience that were just doing a bunch of stuff. And it was so funny. My dad was like, "Those are funny people." He's like, "It's like a bunch of Andes over there."
Basically, it's a giant crowd of Andes all singing away.
It's very funny.
Yeah, good times. Oh, and obviously wearing red socks as well.
Cole Patterson, if they aren't the bearded lady dwarf, I will riot. Well, we'll see where the democracy takes us today.
Just want to put this one up. Let's be honest, Scots going over into Northern Ireland and being absolute arses is far more common. So, yeah, let's just pull off this one really fast and pretend it never happened. Thanks, Devin.
Sean Schultz, how many times is Andy in the Book of Grudges? I mean,
I go in like every other week.
Yeah, if you're living life as you should, you're probably in there many times.
Yeah, the dwarves are pretty problematic when it comes to how they record their interactions with other people.
Yeah, I mean, even a lot of dwarfs are in there, like perfectly normal living life to as best they can. Dwarfs are all over the place in there. Necroplayer, for a decent start, what thing of dwarfs isn't well explored? Maybe the king or hold of the luxury dwarfs of the mountain, the bearded skulls. Yeah, so
for example,
the
that's one thing that could be handled. Yeah.
Parmesia, while Magnificent Sven has been mentioned in the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition, has become a canonical again. I would say in Illustrious Spine, a dwarf hold should exist.
I think that's not a bad idea. If that's what you like when the first vote comes up, you want to be polling for a location, not an individual.
Agar, love you guys. I have to ask,
nice.
dwarf holds all in mountains, how advanced is the instrumentation for their gyros and ships? As I've been led to believe that the weather is even worse than in real life.
You tend to find that they move at the speed of plot.
That's incredibly true.
And as much as I would like to say that a great deal of thought has been put into how they could work, it hasn't. Gyrocopters, if you actually take a look at trying to make them work, don't. They just don't, which means that you either have to go with they've got some sort of funky, cool tech that we don't quite understand, and thus their gyrocopters can work and bear the load that is the extremely heavy gyrocopter, or alternatively, they're doing something with the winds of magic or runes or something else that allows them to fly in a way that others can't. Cut a long story short, nobody has ever done a proper in-depth look into how to make it all work properly, so thus we're just left with this, they just do. And is the world of Warhammer worse for its weather? Yeah, kinda, because it not only has the stresses of two moons, not just one moon, it also has the stresses of the winds of magic spreading across the world as well. So you get all of the standard weather interactions, a bigger planet with the same churning core doing all sort of magnetic field nonsense, and on top of that, you have all the magic. So yeah, it's not the best place to live. Now, does that get ignored by most writers? Yeah, they just have the Thunderbarge go from location A to location B, and if they want to have it attacked by something or for a storm to rise, they do that, or they don't. It tends to move at speed of plot. It might not suit many people out there for the roleplay games, but you find for most writers it's the perfect, mid-spot.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be someone at some point who is like, I've had enough of this, is going to sit down and try and pin out all the specifics that actually knows how those things work. And who knows, we'll make something either really something really insane or something really cool. We'll have to see. Diamond, in light of the topic change, I have a new suggestion. Hold in the spine of Sotek for mind. Well, there's a lot of minor bearded skull.
Well, we getting a feeling that this one might be winning the vote.
Yeah, there's a lot of clamoring for that among the peoples. Horkoval, tired of sausage fest. Dwarf woman, please.
Yeah, and I'm somewhat tired of the sausage fest with the dwarfs as well, particularly given just how important the female dwarfs almost certainly would be culturally. There have been a few, for example, if you go to Grudge of Drong, they spend some time detailing Queen Helga, as I recall in that one.
Yes.
I have that around somewhere.
Yeah.
Do I have it around? No, I don't. Grudge of Drong, where they added an entirely new hold and built an entirely new background. So if you want to get an example of someone else doing a build your own, go see if you can find an old copy of Grudge of Drong for Warhammer 5th edition, which is a wee while ago.
Mm-hmm. Roger Hamilton, hey gents, Andy, please tell everyone about the tech problem with the Dawi, higher tech in the past.
Oh, this can be cut down with a very, very quick set of sentences. There are multiple examples inside Warhammer lore of the dwarf tech, that's the deck, the dwarf tech of the past, the deck, being higher. Indeed, to the point that during the time of the old ones, it's potentially very likely they lived in a high-tech civilization. And this is downplayed in some sources, and it's upplayed in others. The older you go, the more you tend to find that the dwarves are almost living a platonic emanation existence, in that in the beginning it was perfect, and with each generation it gets worse, and they're desperately trying to grasp onto what they had at the beginning. The idea that the holds may originally have all been connected by proper functioning warp gates and trains and other high-tech things that were all lost, and they attempted to try and rebuild or regather. And every once in a while, you find them discovering something that one of the holds had in the past, whether it was high-tech lighting or a high-tech device that they don't quite understand. There's problem number one. The dwarfs appear to be going downwards and then sort of peaking every once in a while, rather than doing the normal thing with tech, which is you develop and develop and develop. But the second one is the standard problem of the Warhammer world as a whole, which is that the dwarfs have long had tech that, and I do mean long had tech, that just hasn't developed at all. And whether you're looking at their ships, whether you're looking at many of their weapons, they have been kicking around in dwarf society for thousands of years without any real development. But having said that, though, you can say the same for most parts of the Warhammer world. Take the Empire, for example. It's had gunpowder for, according to at least one background, 1,000 years. And have they made any major development with it? No, they haven't. It's working exactly the same now as it was all the way back when Lustria was first discovered. And that's a long time for zero development. Where's all the rifling, at the very least? By now, they should have at least figured that out, because look at the engineering marvels that the Empire has. Yet the rifling is left only for the Hochland long rifles, and even they are centuries old as an established piece of kit. So Warhammer as a world, because of the way that it was created and built and developed, has massive tech problems. So this is something that you can, if you wish, build answers for in Warhammer, but you have to make them up because Games Workshop has no real interest or concern with it.
It's very true. Hoplite idea: a Dawi runesmith who uses Tomb King constructs. That it could be a thing.
That's an idea.
Yeah, it could be a thing theoretically. Gnivel Norse dwarf hold with a big Hashit temple, maybe. Yeah, Hashit free.
Yeah, if you're wanting to dive into alternate versions of what the dwarfs can be, doing something like the Mountains of Morn or Norse dwarves is a really good idea, as is obviously heading over and doing something with Lustria. But if we are doing that, that's location, not individual.
Yep. Very true. The Humble Scholar, what about an underwater dwarf hold? Something to stop the Skaven from pouring into Lustria. Minus Clan Pestilence, something like a real Atlantis.
Well, the real Atlantis is already in Warhammer. It's Ulthuan.
Yes, that's true.
It exists already. So in that, Atlantis wasn't an underwater kingdom. That's just what people have done with it because Atlantis sank. Ulthuan is effectively Atlantis before it sinks. And we all know that eventually it's going to sink because that's its ultimate future, because it goes down. So we already sort of have that. Having said that, though, the idea is really good. The idea of having something cool like that. Although Clan Pestilence and the dwarfs don't have much connection. Well, the Skaven and the dwarfs always have connection, but Clan Pestilence is not really a core bad guy of the dwarfs. But is that right? Perhaps it is somewhere else, like, for example, in Lustria.
Very true. Dominic Lynch, question: can dwarves get ancestor relics from the Chaos Dwarfs DLC? If not, that's going in the book. Love the work you two do. I believe as it currently exists in the game, you can get one of them if you're playing with the Slayer engineer.
Malachi.
Yeah, Malachi. If you're playing with Makaisen, you can get one of them. I think there might be a way to get another one, but the rest of them are not available, which I do agree is dumb, and the dwarves should be able to get them by doing super duper crazy nonsense, because that's cool and awesome. All right, and then we'll do like a couple more of these, and then we gotta do our first vote. Joe Numbers, good afternoon from my bed, honored elders. Very excited to see another Bill stream from y'all. Well, we're excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I love these streams because I never know where they're going to go. I've given up on having any expectation for how they could land, because every time I'm like, oh, it could go that way, we end up going in a completely different direction and building a completely different story. But every single one of them so far has made me really happy with the end result, and I'm always quite excited to see what will come next.
Yeah, could not agree more. Herd Corval, I want to talk more. Too bad I have a character limit. Well, you can always just use the regular comments. Like I'm trying to get caught up with the super chats, but we do read the regular comments.
We do.
Why didn't the Green Knight lead the Greenskins during the end times? He's green. You know, it's a shame that that it's such a convincing argument. And you know what? It fits in with a decent amount of the end times writing. That should have been one of the big reveals, was that the Green Knight was truly Wah all along. But yeah, I don't know. The greenskins were surprisingly prejudiced because he doesn't have skin. Maybe that's what it is. He's not a true greenskin because he's missing the skin component. he's just a ghost. Joey Forever, my vote is for Mountains of Mournhold, or I want a Valayan priestess.
Yeah, I think some representative of Valea would be fun. I'm always a bit dodge with dwarf and priests and priestesses because I think it's not the best term for them, even though many of them are, because basically all dwarfs are to a degree attempting to emulate their ancestors. If you start using the word priest, then we have to start saying that the Slayers are priests of Grimnir, which is weird as fuck. Even though they're not necessarily holding the shrines, but they're like warrior priests of Grimnir. I tend to find that it's often better using specific language, as in these are these, and they are like human priests. Humans will often refer to them as priests.
Yeah, I was always deeply... I think I would want to evolve their name into something a little more specific, but I was always very deeply fond of the rune priests that were introduced in Warhammer Online, because they had such a fun set.
Yeah, they were fun. They were fun.
Necroplayer, if we get to do the Lustrious Dwarves, we can detail their queen as both a nice character, but also a fun play and twist on an Amazon trope.
I'm going to be as firm as I can be with this. We will not detail them at all. We will detail the location. We might say it has a queen, but we will not detail that queen.
Yeah, you get one or the other. It's a place or a person.
If you want to have an Amazon queen of the dwarfs, we then choose character, and then we'll bring that up as a potential option. Some sort of Amazonian dwarf queen that, I don't know, plies her trade through the dungeons, perhaps the dungeons and jungles, which is why I intended to say, of Lustria. So if you want an Amazon queen, or indeed any dwarven queen, then go for character, not for location.
Prometheus, let's actually establish the life in Karak Doom. It has got a potential too, I think. If that's where we want to end up doing, we could detail the history and life of what it's like to live in a hold that is in a really struggling place before they finally got the hell out of there. And then last, Jonathan King, build the idea, the royal of the pre-chaos dwarfs that settled Uzkalak.
Yeah, that's yet another cool idea. So I think as we organize our first polls, and that's between either character or location, this is what you need to choose between. Do you want to build up a location somewhere where dwarfs are and can visit? Now, we're not going to say what sort of location yet, but we've already had a bunch of really cool ideas. Whether it's a hold over in Lustria, whether it's an underwater location, whether it's a hold over the Mountains of Morn, whether it's somewhere that gives you an opportunity to bridge the gap between the dwarfs and something else. For example, the dwarves and the Chaos Dwarves. The example given so far in the comments was the Norse dwarves, who may still hold on to some of their old Hashut as the king of, the ancestor god of kingship. I couldn't get that out.
There we go.
There's lots of different routes you can take. If we're going for locations, we'll be detailing places and what those places have and what those places mean to the dwarves. If we're going for an individual, we'll then be dealing with creating an actual character. That character could be, as for example provided, a great sky captain. It could be an Amazonian dwarf princess. It could be an unexpected priestess or an equivalent of Valea. It could be one of many different things. But then instead of building a location, its history and what you can find there, we'll be detailing an individual, their background, what formed them into who they are, and what do they represent in the world before. Now, we've done both before in the Create Your Own, so if you've watched any of those, you'll have a pretty good idea of what we're talking about, whether we're discussing creating a whole character or a whole location. But it's up to you. I have no preference between either, so I'm quite keen to see where you decide that we should be going.
Yeah, both will take us to really interesting places. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on. I'm going to go ahead and start the YouTube poll, and the Twitch poll will launch very quickly afterwards. But
Sweet.
do want to thank you all once again for taking the time to come out to join us for this. We always have fun with these.
Yeah.
Place and person. Oops. And then I'll give y'all, this is arguably the most important poll of the stream. So I will give you just a few, I'll give y'all just a few minutes on that. So the polls are up. Please do go vote and make your voice heard as we start to maneuver our way through that. Azure Shadow. Maybe dwarf priest naming is born of early human mistranslation, where priest would be the knowledgeable person in the tribe, and it's stuck.
That's sadly not the case. Because there's already a host of terms that would cover those things. Priest is generally associated because it's someone who's attached to one of the ancestor gods. And because of that, the human equivalent of that is always priest. But I think the easiest way to imagine it is just simply it's someone who deals with the ancestor gods, either tending their shrines or looking after people who are attempting to emulate them or whatever else it might be. So they get the moniker priest or cleric or priestess, but they're not the same as the human equivalents who are pulling out a whole bunch of special miracles and doing all the rest of it.
The idea of like a shrine keeper or like a relic bearer or someone that they have a particular their role in life revolves around a very particular aspect where they provide like a form of guidance.
Yeah.
But I agree that priests, because they don't use prayers or miracles or blessings as we understand them. So like they would be a very it would be different. The term priest just doesn't it's such an awkward term.
I'm going to bring up a quick comment from Grizz there. We can make it a two-parter. Place, then Lord who rules over the place. Nope. We're doing one or the other. We're sticking with it. We've got too many other things that we can do. So we will be doing one of them. Now, maybe long in the future, we might come back to it and say, hey, we could do this if you wish. But that would only be if there is a big clamoring for it over in Discord.
Yes, that's true. If there was if people were like, for the love of God, go back, then that's always something that can be done.
So if you're really keen to do a person and get on your vote now, because we've got over 100 on YouTube already, and it's currently veering very heavily on location. So if you want to make an actual dwarf character, you'll need to vote for that now.
Yep, and only a little more than half of y'all voted, but like if everybody votes, y'all can still swing it back if you're so inclined. And remember, you could vote over on Twitch as well if you're so inclined to try and help boost things in a direction that you want. But I will give y'all just about another.
I'm going to drop up Ricky's comment as well, because I think that's quite important, because if there's something you want to dive into here, you want to go for character, not location. We're good with either, but we do have some fun ideas for relics and artifacts for both that you may find fun. If you really want to dive into the relics and artifacts, vote person, because they're the ones that carry relics and artifacts. When we do locations, at best we might say there's relics and artifacts in there, but we don't generally dive into the detail of that, because that's minutiae that we probably won't have time for.
Yep. Alrighty. Y'all have had enough time, and it is overwhelmingly, even taking into account Twitch, it is overwhelmingly a place.
It is indeed a place. So the next question we have is, what sort of place are we going to do then? So are we going to go with style of place, or are we just going to go with specific examples? Like there's different styles of places we go for. The most obvious one being hold. The next one could be something else and something else, and then we could determine where that is. Or alternatively, we could just pick out individual places, like for example, hold in Lustria.
Yeah, I'd say let's do kind of a general geographic location, and then immediately follow up with what type of place. That way, people have a minute to like start throwing ideas about what type, because we've had plenty of wheres of Lustria, the ocean.
Norska and Mountains of Morn.
Mountains of Morn.
Yeah, that gives us 4 clear options.
Yeah, that's 4 great options.
That's 4 great options. Yep, I agree.
All right, so I'll go ahead and get that poll up and running.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty damn good one, actually. So it looks like we're going to go with Norska as option number 1, and that give us an opportunity to dive into what it might be like to have one of the Norse holds, taking into account all of their background rather than Games Workshop's view of the Norse, which tends to be whoever's writing it that day writes something, ignoring a good chunk of the existing lore that lies around it. We'll be able to pull everything in and say, this is what a Norse hold could look like. Option number 1. Option number 2, Mountains of Morn. They're constantly discussed, but never really detailed. There's apparently some dwarves over there doing dwarf things, but who are they? What are they doing? Why are they there? That will be a lot of fun for us to potentially discuss. And then if we go to the other side of the world, Lustria. Now, we know that Total War added some Lustrian dwarfs all the way over in the mountains there, but they, again, don't have a great deal of detail. So we could just build up an entire section for those. That could be super fun. And the last one is, I'd say, almost the wild card of the group, a potential set of underwater dwarfs. Dwarves that are down below, potentially even fighting something that might be rhyming with wishmen.
Wishfin. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the poll up. There's a decent amount, the ocean is definitely an absolute fucking wild card. The other three
is a total wild card.
Yeah, the other 3, there's at least a decent amount of support and background that suggests and whispers about them. But the poll is up on YouTube, and let's see what part of the world.
Interesting. Votes quite split so far.
And the ocean, and what was the last one again? Norska. All right, and I'll give y'all just a couple minutes on that. That way we're moving and grooving at a good pace. But the poll is up on both chats now, so please do be sure to let your voice be heard, as there are plenty of good options here.
Yeah, there is. And for those of you who aren't watching the vote too closely, at the moment we've got a pretty clear lead for Lustria and Mountains of Morn, with Mountains of Morn currently pipping it. If you would like to change that, go dive in now. Approximately half of you voted, so the more votes that we can get in, the better.
Yeah, so I will say the Mountains of Morn, if you're looking at a scale from what has the most amount of pre-established material to the least, it would be Norska. Obviously, there's a lot there. We'd be focusing in on detailing a specific place of it, but there's a lot of supporting material that we would be fleshing out around. I would say the next would be the Mountains of Morn. Of that, we do know a hold over there, and there are little scraps and bits and pieces of details of why Corpse went over there, how they got there, various little secrets about them. We know what they're primarily dealing with. Then you've got the Lustria hold, or Lustria concept, where we have 2 scraps of information outside of Total War. And the Total War stuff is very just kind of they're there, have fun, with no explanation whatsoever. And then at the absolute bottom, there's the ocean, which is complete farcical nonsense, but that has never stopped us before here on Lorebeards.
We're getting bribed.
We are getting bribed.
We're getting bribed by Joe Numbers. Joe!
So Joe says, honorable Longbeards. I like that. I like he's also being very, very cautious and ambassadorial about it. I offer this gift of gold, silver, and copper. I request a sequel stream at the end of the month, please, if that's possible. If not, sometime next month.
You know what? If we're bribed, we're bribed. I'm happy to be bribed. I'm a total shill.
All right, fine.
Yeah, fair enough. We're bribed. Okay, we'll add it to the list. We won't give the date yet. We won't say whether it'll happen before the end of this month or whether it'll be next month. Because you know what we're like over in Lorebeards Fantasy. We've been somewhat inconsistent of late. We've got quite a lot that's piled up. But it's now added onto the list. Joe, you rock.
All right,
thank you very much.
We will do a person associated with what y'all end up trading today. Person. Okay, I have put that on my hot list. There we go. That is there. And the Twitch poll has finished, so I'm going to give y'all over on YouTube just a couple other seconds. Get your votes in. Get your votes in real quick, because I'm going to be wrapping this up in just a second. Here, let me grab this last super chat, and by the time we're done with that, Herd Corville, Albion dwarfs. That way we could do dwarf leader Nigel Farbeard.
Oh, like the Brexit. No.
Wanting to lead the alliance of the World's Edge Mountains because too many invasions of Florida. Get out! Get out! Oh my god.
I've got enough of that in real life. Fucking hell, I don't need that in my fucking Warhammer.
Okay, last thing. Sir Shadow. Idea for how they got to Morn. Out of hand oath with Cathayan forced to move to temporary locations. Perhaps trade deal mistook Cathayan for an Unbaragan. Well, I mean, the Mountains of Morn are like not that outlandish. This would probably be more, if you wanted to have like an outlandish story, you could do that. But that would probably end up being more of almost like a ancient giant lands or mountains of heaven situation.
Yeah.
If you had a dwarf that like just completely screwed the pooch over in Cathay and just had to go to some nearby mountains that were sort of out of Cathay, you'd probably end up in those ranges instead, which have their own unique set of problems and dangers. And that is time.
That's a pretty heavy win over on YouTube for Lustria. Where over on Twitch, it was a slight but only marginal win for the Mountains of Morn.
Yeah, literally one vote.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we can happily say Lustria is the overall winner between our two chats there. So Lustria, this is obviously where I now hand over to everybody's favorite Total War aficionado and say, what do they tell us about the dwarves in Total War, Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, so we over in Lustria, we get a new faction that just spears out of the ether, which is known as the Spine of Sotek Dwarfs. And the Spine of Sotek Dwarfs obviously live in the Spine of Sotek, which is the big giant mountain range that crosses the entirety of Lustria. It is huge, and most importantly, it is very scantily detailed. There is very, very, very little information. One of the very few sites that is noted within the Spine of the Sotek Mountains is the Mine of Bearded Skulls. Now, that is not the only piece of information that we have. There is one other piece that came to us from the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition book, the Dwarf book, which is that there is a mention within the book that deep beneath the hold, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember which hold it was. I can't remember if it was one of the Norscan dwarf holds or if it was one of the regular dwarf holds. Someone in chat will remember the specific, but there is a mention about how the Dawi of a hold were in the deeps, like very, very far down in the deeps. And it was Karak Ziflin. Perfect. There you go. So in the depths of Karak Ziflin, there was a group of dwarfs that found a strange rune-covered gateway, and something happened and triggered that allowed them to open it. And when it opened, they saw a great underground, I believe it was upside down due to like their perspective or whatever, golden pyramid. And one of the dwarfs goes through this gate, and then the gate closes, and the dwarfs could not figure out how to get it back open, and they just basically bury it and try not to think about it because they can't figure out how to make it work again, and they lost somebody while investigating it, and they were like, oh, that was really spooky. And it's implied that it was either located somewhere deep in the Southlands or in Lustria. It almost feels like it was angling towards Lustria, especially with the whole like upside down aspect, that it may have been like somewhere on the other complete opposite side of the world, which is what gave them that weird perspective concept. But yeah, so you've got the Spine of Sotek Mountains there, you can see, and then if we look all the way, let's see,
it's about halfway down. It's just underneath the Spine of Sotek, where you can see the mine of the bearded skulls.
Yeah, and that is a pretty big deal because there's most of these locations, especially on the eastern side, western, sorry. On the western side of the Spine of Sotek Mountains, we know nothing about.
Yeah.
So, like, we don't know what the Golden Colossus is. We don't know why the Forbidden Jungle is forbidden. We don't know what the Halls of the Holy is further in the north. We don't know any of this. This is all, like, complete, utter mystery, which is convenient for those of us that are moving in here now and saying, well, we're about to make sense of some of this nonsense.
Yeah. So what we need to decide first is, what the fuck? And by that, I mean, why is there dwarves here? And we've got to decide, how did they get over there? Or were they there almost since the beginning? Or did they arrive by mysterious gate? Did they arrive because they migrated over there for one reason or another? Were they sent by a high king long in the past? Were they some other idea? So if you've got ideas for how they could have got there, drop them in the chat now. We'll be looking out for them. But we're going to have to decide how they got over to the Spine of Sotek in the first place. Now, one thing worth noting, if you want to have them arrive by water, you absolutely and very easily can do, because all they need to do is go down by the southern, I can't remember, the southern cape, I suppose, where the Citadel of Dusk is. That is the Citadel of Dusk on this side, isn't it? Yes, it is. The Citadel of Dusk down at the bottom. They could have gone down round there, gone all the way up by, I think it's the Copper Desert. Gosh, I'm going to go look it up. Is it the Copper Desert? Yeah, the Copper Desert. And they very easily could have landed there. And almost certainly this Copper Desert is filled with all manner of Old One nonsense. The reason for saying that is because we are quite aware that there's all manner of crazy stuff in the Nazca Plains in the real world. The Nazca Plains and their great big glyphs that are on the ground, which all manner of alternative history in heavy quotation, alternative history folk love to say aliens. It's aliens. So inevitably, our Copper Desert is going to be filled with aliens. It's aliens, because we all know that the Warhammer world is not just a fantasy setting. It's a post-apocalyptic sci-fi setting. And the Copper Desert is almost certainly somewhere that's going to have access to a whole host of weird Old One stuff. That's something to potentially take into consideration when you're thinking about how the dwarves got here. There's going to be stuff here that they're going to be interested in mining, particularly one of the most valuable substances to the dwarves, which is gromril. Gromril is star metal or star iron, sometimes given some other names. There's other types of star metals. There's star silver, that's mentioned in a few places inside Games Workshop products. But cut a long story short, star metal, gromril, is what they forge some of their greatest artifacts from, and can carry and hold some of the most powerful runes. It's very likely the Spine of Sotek, because it's so close to so much of what the Old Ones were doing with their plans inside the Warhammer world, is going to be filled with stuff that the dwarves are going to be interested in getting. So what's our story for how the dwarves get there?
Do we want to do a quick poll about what kind of place our place is going to be? Whether it's
I don't think so. We can do that after. Because we can decide how they got there first. We've got an idea of what sort of people they are, because that might change. Yeah, that might change what we get. If, for example, they teleport in by going through some sort of paths of the Old Ones, and they move from a hold over in one part of the world and arrive here and are abandoned on the other side of the world, then that's a very different potential location as they barricade the place up, and almost certainly turns into a hold, to one that might be a naval port, which is their first part in, and then they move up into the mountains. And then there's lots of different things that we could play with. So what do you think are the 4 different ways that we could get across?
So I've actually...
What the fuck?
That would be the most elaborate. That would basically be, well, why don't the dwarves just build a space elevator? That would be like on the same
I like that one
level of
deeply.
insanity.
And also because it's here, a divine message from Smednir to go to the spine for the star metal, or divine messages. It's not something that's typically done for dwarves, but it's not entirely unknown. You tend to find that when dwarves are dealing with their ancestors, it's often ghosts and similar that speak to them in some of the old holds, rather than necessarily their ancestors themselves turning up. It's a very rare story inside Warhammer Fantasy, unlike Age of Sigmar, where the ancestors are directly involved. They tend to be quite distant entities that are almost a mystery to the dwarves rather than something they truly, fully understand. So because divine messages and revelation of that ilk tends to be much more magical feeling, dwarves tend not to get that inside Warhammer Fantasy. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, it's just rare.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got like Paths of the Old Ones.
Paths of the Old Ones seems to be a good option.
Teleportation, weird portal shenanigans.
Yep.
We've got,
which could also involve some divine revelation or ghosts or something like that, because a way through. Yep.
We've got some so navally, so either like a lost fleet or they traveled here, so over water.
Over water, like that. That makes sense. So over water, or they've teleported, basically.
We've got another idea here. They're native. So
native, I think native is a really good one, because then we'd end up with a very different style of dwarf. We could end up with dwarfs that are much more Inca or Aztec or Mayan or some other indigenous Lustrian folk directed, or we could have something that's very uniquely themselves. Because if you look at a lot of the megalithic architecture of the South Americas, it's very megalithic, strangely enough, with their big stones, which do feel quite dwarfen in how they're put together, particularly if you take a look at some of the ridiculous walls in the place that I can't forget the name of. I can't remember the name of. Yeah.
And then, and then we could do by sky of like some great, perhaps like a great barge or flying vessel, like got made some kind of
so I think that we tone those two different, we traveled over ones slightly differently. We can have one, if it's coming by sky, that really does feel like something that's purposeful. So that feels really purposeful. So we can say that this is one that's looking for something specifically. Where if it's a naval one,
I think that ties in well to some people were saying like dwarfs that maybe ventured here, like came back with gold or came back with something. We're like, there's this over there. They were like, oh my god,
cities of gold.
The dwarf gold rush.
Yeah, totally. So that would be that they're coming over seeking something, where the other one could be just settlers, colonists. And I think if you're wanting to know which one they'd likely go with Games Workshop, it would probably be colonists. Because that tends to be how most of the writers think. The more high fantasy options where they go, oh, they could come through Paths of the Old Ones, that tends to get played down by most writers. They get a little bit antsy when it comes to going with the high fantasy options. So that's the most likely one that they do at Games Workshop. But we can ignore what Games Workshop would do and just simply go with what you think is the best option out of these four.
Okay, so I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna convert the sky option to dwarf seeking something. So dwarfs seeking goal via sky/sea. I'll do that.
Not by sea. They're definitely coming by sky.
Oh, by sky. Okay, and then
they're coming by sky, because we'll build the story in that they almost like the fingerprints of the gods themselves are tracing down the gods into their golden cities and attempting to do something. That could be quite a fun one.
And then we got colonial dwarfs by sea.
Yeah, so then we're dealing with dwarfs who are, for one reason or another, deciding that they are leaving the old world behind and they are going to the new world for whichever reason. And this could be a long time ago. This could be before the elves and the dwarfs fall out with the War of the Beard and War of Vengeance. So it could be back in a time when they're having good relations and the dwarves make one or two attempts to spread outwards from their mountain holds over in the old world.
All right, then I've got stumble through paths/portal. So Paths of the Old Ones or portal shenanigans or what have you.
Yeah, that's the obvious one for that one is probably most of the holds were originally back in the days of the old ones connected to each other. So it would be reactivating some ancient device that took you through to a location over in Lustria that used to be important for the old ones.
Yeah, so essentially leaning into like the Carrick Ziflin shorts adventure hook. That's the word I was looking for. All right, and then last we've got native to Lustria.
So these dwarfs have always been here, which means that they will have the same ancestor gods because they are dwarfs and they are coming from the same root, and they were cut off. They were isolated from Ankor for one reason or another. We can discuss exactly what that is if you decide to go for this option. This is the one where if you want to build a unique set of dwarfs that are completely different, this is an option that Games Workshop almost certainly wouldn't take, but that doesn't mean that you can't take that one. In some respects, they sort of tried to do that with the Norse dwarfs, but they keep on overwriting and re-overwriting themselves with that one, leaving them with some rather twisted, convoluted stories about how one group didn't know about the other group for ages, even though that makes no sense in practice.
Yep, and yeah. Classic GW.
Yeah, classic GW. Just so we know, Devin, all of them gives us options for wars with lizardmen. All of them, for one reason or another.
All of these would result in...
Because it's very likely we're going to be creating some sort of location which has potentially some very interesting old one tech influences, and we all know what the lizardmen think when people come along and steal what they consider to be their stuff.
Yep. All right, the polls are up. So please do get your votes in. We're gonna get caught up on super chats real fast because those of y'all are really y'all are talkative today. Sorcerer friend, here money. P.S. Sorry about Sunday, Andy. Meant to say a good chunk of Brett nobles instead of all Brett nobles were descendants of Grail Knights and Damsels. Did not mean to trigger nerd rage. Hope this is okay.
It was good.
That's funny. Super Orlock, great. Ulrich, I finally caught a stream again. Good to see you. Hi, Super Orlock. Good to see you. Welcome.
Good to see you too.
The Humble Scholar, come on. The spine of Sotek dwarves have been there since the beginning. Remember those guys? Yeah, GW a few years from now. They've always been there. What are you talking about? Cole Patterson, could these dwarves be Inca inspired? If they're native, yes.
Yeah, they absolutely could.
Yeah. If they're like, you know, if you pick the other three options, they're going to be much more culturally inspired by the dwarfs that we already have. But if you're wanting them to be kind of a product of their own environment, much more leaning, then you want to go for the native Lustria option. Grim Isaac was planning on trying to make our tomb person a consort of Cetra after death, but would this be enough to have the dwarfs finally have cavalry using Cold One chariots, or maybe even dinosaurs with howdahs? Also, add this amount to Face Flaya's fund. The Face Flaya's fund thing. Could we have mounted dwarves? Potentially. Now, you could have dwarves using beasts of burden. Like, that's a thing, right? Like, that's not a strange idea. You have the whole thing of, like, the pony carts that are, like, pulled by creatures. Like, and if they're over in Lustria, especially if they're native, they will have learned to use the resources they have available, which is going to include unusual creatures. Now, whether they'll be cavalry, we'll see.
No, not unless somebody really pushes hard for it. Dwarves don't do cavalry. If you put dwarves in cavalry, it's weird. You end up with just a completely different faction. They no longer feel like dwarfs. You get rid of the dwarfiness. Dwarfs are squat, they hold, they're slow, and even when they're the crazy ones that are charging, they're still a slow but inevitable tide. You want to reinforce what makes a dwarf rather than basically saying, you know how dwarfs are slow and they build a wall? No, these ones go really fast.
Yeah, more
it kind
honestly,
of ruins it.
What we're probably looking at here is that instead of dwarfs relying on things like mountain ponies and stuff, these would be dwarfs that would probably rely on like llamas or alpacas.
And big long roads that are connecting each one of their individual holds if they are the locals.
Yeah, because if they're the locals, they'll have been here a long time. Biofoot, this is easy. crab dwarfs started the whole. Thank you, Byfoot. Though I it was to my understanding everything is supposed to eventually evolve into crabs, not evolve away from crabs. But thank you, nonetheless. Donoman, I did a Hero Forge fan art of what they could look like. I tried to merge historical Inca soldiers with Warhammer Fantasy dwarves. I've put it in the Lawhammer Discord Lorebeards chat.
Okay.
I will take a look at that.
You want to go look at that? You want to do that one? Superb. While you're grabbing that, I'll see what the next chat is. He said, scrolling back quickly.
And I'm about to finish. Actually, you know what? I could just finish it. I just looked at the results. I could just finish it.
Yeah. How are the results?
Hilariously, overwhelmingly, they're native.
They're native. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Okay, so our dwarfs have been here since the Cataclysm. That's cool. At one point, these dwarves were connected to the dwarfs of the Ankor. That no longer is the case, and hasn't been the case for thousands of years. These dwarves are almost certainly isolated. And by that, I mean they are not connected to the Ankor, nor have they been communicated with and connected to groups like the High Elves or Dark Elves, I suppose. These are going to almost certainly be Spine of Sotek dwarfs. They will almost certainly also name that range with their own name, which will have something that sounds much more like Kazalid. Now, you might go, well, wait a minute. Will they be speaking the dwarf language? Will they be using runes? Yes, all of the core dwarf stuff is handed to them by their ancestors. And if you look at many of the religious groups and stories of the peoples of the South Americas, there's quite a lot of them that draw upon the idea that the gods gave them their first awareness of agriculture, how to do tiered farming, how to tend various places, and that was given to them by their gods. So this works really well for our dwarfs that are going to be in the location as well, where they have been handed down by their ancestors, by their gods, how to survive, live, work within that particular within that particular area. So we've got a group that has been here for thousands of years, an entirely unique grouping of dwarfs who also have many of the same runes, the same linguistic basis of the dwarfs, the same traditional pride-based society, but it will manifest differently because we're building an entirely new version of who or what they might be.
Yeah, I think I see that other image you whoop. I hit the wrong button. I see that other image you've got kind of queued up there that some other people have also been posting in the thing of that the Inca were also very, very fond of very large stone fortress walls. Like, good God, those things are huge.
Okay, this is pulling out from a comment from, in particular, let me see if I can pull out the comment because it was mentioned by them and it was, I can't see it. I've lost it. God damn it. Don't you hate it when you lose something? You had it sitting right by your screen. There it is. Well, Andy was likely thinking of Machu Picchu. I was not. A really good example of Inca stonework is the fortress from Saxe. When I read this as a kid, all I ever read this was as sexy human.
Sexy human.
Sexy human. And I can't get that out of my head. It feels like a really bad pun made by Games Workshop. I know it's not pronounced anything like that, but that's exactly how it used to sit in my head.
That is like peak 1989 Games Workshop writing right there.
Totally is. Just look at how big the stones are and how well they fit together. Have also posted examples in the Lawhammer Discord, and just to bring up more examples of that so you can have a look at it. They are big, massive, megalithic, zero cement walls. And if you take a look at a lot of their constructions, they are obviously not for dwarfs, because dwarves are rarely above ground, but they're all above ground, big fortresses sitting at the top of hills, connecting their various mountain and hill locations with roads that went between them. And rather amusingly, if we go with the standard history, these long roads didn't really have wheels because it was before the invention of the wheel, which is, I think, kind of mental and somewhat myopic by any of the people who are doing it. Just because you haven't found the thing yet doesn't mean the thing doesn't exist.
Yeah,
and didn't exist. I mean, some of these stones are stupid big. The basic movement of them requires a log that rolls or something similar that you roll it across. But no, apparently no wheels.
I'm tempted to say something, but I'm gonna refrain. I'm gonna resist the urge. Yeah, and the thing that works. My voice, goodness,
that went really weird.
Yes, it did. The thing that works really well for this is that this translates so naturally to Dawi. This idea of like the mountain, like as you would be journeying up a mountain, you reach a point where there's just these titanic walls that look like they just grew out of the earth itself, but the dwarves had meticulously moved and built up these, and they go deep into the mountains as well. Like you would see, of course, the parts that rise out of it as these great blocks that are significantly larger than people, but it also, of course, they dig down into it and it goes down beyond that. But you have these layered structures, just like the holes that we see over in the World's Edge Mountains, except for they just take a different architectural style that's more emulative of what we see in the rest of Lustria with the Lizardmen, where they're more, these dwarfs would probably, and actually, very interestingly, this would almost in a funny way suggest that there is something in ancient dwarf culture that leans towards pyramids that we see with like the Hashut dwarfs of the Chaos dwarfs, where they also built up as steep pyramids. We see steep pyramids being built up in Lustria, which would suggest some kind of ancient common ancestry, which is a very cool thread to leave lying around.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that because we're culturally wanting these to feel like they're different, we can do a few things with these dwarfs that are not necessarily done over in the far east of here, I suppose, or if you want to go all the way around the world, the far west. But if we go for the eastern dwarves, they are battened down below the holds, an absolute tight part of their nature, which got reinforced by the War of the Beard. Massively reinforced by the War of the Beard, where they lost so much territory from greenskins, from the high elves, from everyone else, and they just basically went behind their walls and went, I'm done. Where this group is potentially going to be isolated and allowed to be a bit freer. So we could, for example, draw upon many of the ancient Andean communities where the terraced agriculture is a core component of one of their advanced pieces of technology that they had. And we could have dwarves who are living on top of the mountains as well as in the mountains, with agricultural terraced groups down the side, which allows them to actually be fed properly in a way that doesn't require us to make up something weird that sits beneath underground just to feed the populations that we have.
Yeah, something I like about that as well is Lustria is infamously known as the land without dragons. As the dragons were said to have been wiped out by ancient predators and things like the Carnosaurs and the Lizardmen, but this also suggests that the dwarves have their own relationship with it, and that if it's the land without dragons, it's very much a land that lacks many of like the really high up monstrous airborne threats that might be seen in the old world. So these dwarfs up on these really steep, relatively easy to defend mountains from an aerial perspective, are able, like Andy said, to have these open fields, these places where they have these great packs of like llamas that they are able to breed for like wool and meat and all this stuff. And if you attack their mountains, it's a nightmare to attack because you either have to try and go for the gates that are more towards ground level, which are heavily reinforced by all this runic magic or stuff, or you have to climb up these nightmarishly steep, way up their mountains. And even if you try that, they will come out and fight you. They'll just swarm out like ants that you just kick the hive out of.
Yeah, and I think that we're in a strong position as well, just to reinforce that land without dragons tale, to potentially have them having slain their dragons. Yes. Down in the roots of the world underneath the spine of Sotek. These dwarves have cleared it out, allowing them to move up, and they never went through the same war that the Eastern dwarves, it's really difficult to decide exactly how we define east and west here, because it's the old world is often seen as the west, but from the perspective of Lustria, it's the east. So the old world dwarfs are going through conflict after conflict. Now, these will be as well, but they're in a far, you could argue, better position where the lizardmen are not naturally aggressive unless you're taking their shit, and these are part of the old one's plan. So they've got no reason to directly attack them unless they literally have to, meaning that very possibly they could coexist with relative ease, which means that the biggest predators that they have to deal with are the natural predators of Lustria, which they're above, which is pretty cool. Which is a pretty cool place. Now, will we have green skin issues and Skaven coming up from the bottom? Oh, damn straight. And Clan Pestilence is probably one of their biggest enemies now after Clan Pestilence have come in. Anyway, we need to move towards some sort of other cool vote, and we've got a lot of super chats to get through too.
Yeah, we do.
So what do we think our first vote should be concerning how these get manifested over here?
Oh, we have to do what kind of specific place we're building.
So what's the obvious one? The first most obvious one would be hold. We build a hold. And if we do this, what we're doing is we are building a single example of a hold of this particular unique group of dwarfs. The next one is to go a little bit more big, and instead we build a sequence of holds and their connecting roads and potentially sky bridges and similar. So what we're doing is we're building the civilization, not a hold. If we build a hold, we'll be discussing what you find inside it, how they defend it, what it looks like, how big it is, how many live there. If we're discussing top tier stuff, we'll be saying how many holds are in this location. Okay, what are the unique aspects of each one of these little holds? We won't be drilling into the detail at all. We'll be very much outside of the detail, building the overall civilization. So civilization, hold, what would be a nice third one?
I think a third one, we could build location of interest being the Mine of the Bearded Skulls, which is called a mine, but it may also be a tomb that has to do with some like neutral, like it could be like a sacred place of Guzul or something. So we could have like a special location with the Mine of the Bearded Skulls.
Tootsers. And has anyone else got a cool idea out there? If you're listening, if you do, get it into the chat right now, or forever hold your peace.
Yeah, and I can grab some super chats real quick while Andy's looking at like comments as they're coming in. Peter Osborne, buried through the earth. There you go. Humble Scholar, prefix of the Lustrian holds Lraka instead of Karak, maybe.
Any reason why you choose that, Humble Scholar?
Yeah, is that like has to do with like the Incan what scraps of Incan language we managed to hold on? I can't remember if Incan's a dead language or not. Like I know there are some languages that we have that are offshoots, but Lord Eisen, could it be that ancient dwarf tech connected there during the ancestor god's time and they were cut off when it collapsed? That would very likely be the case. It would be that there was old one tech connecting them to the rest of the dwarfs, or at least the dwarfs over in Karak Zorn at minimum, but after the cataclysm those connections got severed.
Yep. Agreed.
Especially that actually works really well if you go with like the Lizardman lore of that the Slann have lost contact with the Southland Slann, especially after Chupyodo collapsed. If the Slann can't communicate, it makes sense that the dwarfs wouldn't be able to transport either.
It's also worth noting, though, that Games Workshop's depiction of the Lizardman has been universally, and I really don't want to say this because, you know, Ryan's on call, poor. And one of the primary reasons for that is because they very clearly describe an entire civilization that can teleport anywhere in the world given time, and then don't.
Yep.
They're lost over there. I mean, are they? But they can mind read anywhere across the world. In fact, I've got one Slann who's mind reading and really screwing with things in the Border Princes. So you're doing that, but you can't contact a telepathic message into the Southlands. What the fuck is going on here? And Games Workshop's answer to what the fuck is going on here is what? We didn't say that, did we? Did we? Oh, right. Hand wave. Let's move on. Their story for the Lizardman doesn't make a great deal of sense, and you have to build quite a lot of solid frameworks underneath it to make it make sense. But yes, I think this answer is the obvious one.
Yeah. And then let's see. A fourth location is, let's see, or fourth type of place. Sorry, type of place. So open air settlement. That's basically a hold. Already. Cusco. That resist the urge. Resist the urge. That could be like a minor settlement somewhere.
I don't know, what were you looking at there?
Someone was saying Karak Cusco, like inverse the group. Could build a set of like massive sky bridges connecting the various peaks.
So I wouldn't like to do that, purely because that is what the Eastern Dwarfs have done and did. It would be nicer if they had their own unique manifestations for how they were connecting their individual parts. Now, that doesn't mean no sky bridges. It's just that sky bridges don't speak to what the various South American populations did to the same way that it does to the dwarfs. So it's nice to include them, but I think the long stone roads, which were a core component of those, would be much more fun to connect through. Lots of roads through the mountain passes, and then bridges, obviously very dwarven, much bigger than you'd normally expect, but not sky bridges being the core component soaring between the peaks.
The last option that we have that could be interesting would perhaps be doing something like a temple or a fortress.
Temple or fortress? Well, temple is not very dwarfy, unless we decide it's dwarfy for them. It's very South American in that. You'll find that many of the ancient pyramids were spiritually capped with temples, and often Catholic churches at that, where they just went, well, let's put a Catholic church up there. Woo! Let's move on. Yeah, I think I'd like to avoid religion if we can. So I think a fortress might be quite fun. And if we do fortress as an option, then we'll also be building why the fortress is there and what they're fighting against.
Yeah, I do have a wildcard option.
Oh, I love wildcard options.
What if we were to build essentially like I don't know what the word specifically I'm looking for would be, but like a place of industry where they make tech that's far crazier than what, because I think when a lot of people are looking at this and they're thinking like Incan dwarfs, they think, oh, they're going to be like low tech. But what if we were to twist that on its head and have a place where they are working with like remnants of old one tech and they're actually extremely high tech?
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Yeah. That make for an interesting difference. There was also a comment I want to bring up about, there we go. I don't think it's a dead language, says Downaman. Quechua, I've almost certainly pronounced that wrong. It's still spoken, although it has a lot of Spanish loanwords. Yeah, it does. I was just looking up myself. And I'm glad you brought the comment up because it saved me having to just randomly spout it. Definitely does. And it's an official language in Peru as well. So that's the language of the people, Runasima, which has been sort of handed down and is not the language it once was, but it's still broadly a descendant from the Incan Empire.
I do know we have a decent amount of Peruvian viewers. So if there's anyone out there that's like, I know some of these languages and I could suggest words for what
that'd be amazing, because
would be called, we would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely, because I know I certainly don't have enough knowledge in this.
All right, we'll go with Old One Factory. That's fine. So our options are a classic hold, or like a place where people live. Mm-hmm. Broader civilization, so talking about a series of holds, the roads that connect them, and kind of building it from a more zoomed out perspective. We have the Mine of the Bearded Skulls as a focused, specific, quote unquote, legendary location that would have like a detailed history where things have happened and it has important relevance to the dwarfs of these lands. And then we have our last option of an Old One Factory. So delving into what their tech level would be like. What are the things they're creating and inventing that make them very, very unique and allow them to keep up with the threats and dangers of this part of the world?
Cool. Yeah. Like that. Let's go with that.
Cool beans. I just need to grab that and then post and then grab that.
It's already getting quite fun. I wonder where we're going to end up.
I am very curious because it's
juicy.
Yeah. It's forming in my brain in real time, which is always actually super exciting when that happens. All right. Pulls her up, pulls her up, pulls her up, pulls her up. And there's a lot of super chats we need to catch up on, so we're just gonna jump into it. Slushy Raccoon. The west coast of the New World used to be dominated by the dwarfs. Shame that coast was shattered. Ooh, that's kind of a fun idea. That maybe around like the turtle, that they used to control significant amounts of territory around like the Turtle Isles and the Upper Isles, because that's all around those mountains. But it does. That coastline looks like it got absolutely annihilated by something.
Yeah. Yeah, quite liking that. They've got their second Dragon Isles over there as well, as I recall, because, hey, you can't just have one set of Dragon Isles, you've got to have two, which is a very funny name for a place that apparently has no dragons.
Yeah, perhaps that's what the last ones were.
Yeah, that does make sense of that. So I think I quite like that idea that there used to be a lot of them during the Cataclysm. That entire place was ravaged. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fun. I actually really like that.
Yeah, me too.
And that also gives them their own unique, devastating crisis that they went through that drove them higher up into the peaks as well, which is nice that they wouldn't want to settle down in the lowlands because of like they got like hit by a tsunami on that side of the mountains.
Yeah, you can go with the old flood myths because there's quite a lot of flood myths in the South Americas as well. So we can pull upon that and have enormous tsunamis crashing against the entire mountain range on that side, flooding what used to be potentially quite a lot of lowland communities of what may have been dwarfs and possibly humans or something else that you might want to put in that area. All of them dead now. And only those who managed to survive up in the peaks are still in existence. Could also have some really fun lakes that are really high up in the mountains, and they're full of salt water because of the massive, huge waves.
That's such a cool idea of imagery of like someone discovering them being like, but that means, oh my God.
That means the waves go all the way up that high and drench the place. So yeah, that could be quite fun.
Skylar Martin, lizards. We're the more stubborn people clinging on to the past. Dwarfs, no, we're the more stubborn people refusing to let the past go. Fight ensues. Yeah, pretty much. Grim Isaac. So this is what 150.
Holy crap!
Chariots and better Stegodon Howdas. Also had to face play. I will tell you. First of all, me and Andy have utterly resigned to the fact that if we ever, which we will, do the create a green skin, it's gonna be face play. It's unavoidable.
It's now looking like it's becoming more and more a thing, but we are still resisting.
Yeah, it's that side. You remember at the end of the in game, the Infinity War movie, when Thanos is just sitting there waiting for the heroes, being like, I am inevitable. That's faceplay to me and Andy at this point. I would suspect, you know what we could do, Grim Isaac, that could be fun, is that maybe when we do the person dwarf, there could be like, there was a dwarf monarch or of some sort, or dwarf hero that did ride a full-fledged type of chariot into battle. Or maybe they use something like that to get there was one that travels across those sky roads to move at like really fast speeds. I will say that the idea of them using like dinosaur creatures as their beasts of burden, I don't think that's super crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Really like the idea of that. Is that how they go to war? I'm not sure. It depends on how you view what their warrior style is. However, you've thrown a big one, so I think that no matter what we're doing, we should have at our heart the idea that these are not standard dwarves.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, we are going to be looking at these and making decisions, Grim Isaac, because thank you very much for that, Grim Isaac. Enormously appreciated. But remember to look after yourself. And we definitely have to be looking at methods of showing how these dwarves are going to be handling things differently. And I think at the core cultural touchstone of they've got these great roads that connect one location to the next location, and how are they getting along these roads may be a part of this.
Yeah, okay, get your votes in, because it's actually very, very close between a broader civilization and the old one factory. Which, yeah, someone pulls up a good point of like, it could be that maybe if we do old one factory, maybe those chariot type creations come from the factory.
Yeah, totally.
If they have technology that makes it like super reliable and safe from the perspective of how dwarfs view things. I mean, there's dwarfs willing to fly in gyrocopters. There would be dwarfs willing to have a old one tech chariot pulled by velociraptors. Peter Osborne, this might be a lost reference, but seems like a perfect opportunity for a push me, pull you.
Push me to a two-headed llama.
Oh, never heard of that before. That's very interesting.
Dr. Doolittle.
Ricky Chapman, there are rune control. That is a very good point, Ricky Chapman. If these dwarves have held on to ancient tech, they might have much easier access to the runic control collars that are canon from the Monstrous Arcanum that were used to control
Heck,
the shard
they may
dragon.
even have been built by these dwarfs.
Yep, that works.
That works really well. Like
and then
that.
the idea of them having a Stegadon Howdah suddenly makes a ton of sense.
Yeah,
They
so
control the dinosaurs.
hey, Grim Isaac, looks like you're going to get your wish here.
There it is.
We're building a story that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And that is time.
Interesting.
And our winners are so Twitch overall went for the Mind of the Bearded Skull, which unfortunately fell a good bit behind our YouTube poll. But I would say the solid winner overall is the Old One Tech Factory.
Yeah, so we've got to decide what they're doing here. Are we dealing with a bunch of dwarfs? Because we're going to be building this now. We're not building the civilization. We just know it's connected. Oh, yes.
I will say Total War actually supports this as well, because when they put Thoric Ironbrow in the Lustria for the campaign where he just sort of ended up there. But Thoric, through discovering ancient rune tech, has the yoked Carnosaur, which is an unbreakable Carnosaur controlled by the dwarfs.
Yeah, this is all flowing together nicely. Okay, so we're not building the civilization. This is something that's connected to it. We are not building characters. We are not building the great road systems, although we are saying that this is something that's connected to them. In terms of where it is, you're probably looking at a high location that looks down over the Copper Deserts. And that allows you to have perhaps the big runic symbols of the old ones that are down over the Copper Deserts, because these are runic dwarves. So that'll be quite close to places like I think the Thrice Cursed Peaks in there somewhere. He said, looking down, trying to remember.
We could use, as the Forge, we could use the Halls of the Holy, which is marked out as an Old One site.
Where's that Halls of the Holy?
It's just north of the Caverns of the Great Bat. So it's about, so if you look at where the S for the Spine of Sotek is and you go straight up, it's to the left of the Chasm of the Condor.
No, I'm just not finding it at all. I'm going to look at the map of my other one.
It's a little hard
over there. So I was hoping we keep it close to the Copper Desert purely because Copper Desert sounds so dwarfy.
What about the Skyfinger? Which
Skyfinger sounds perfect.
A great old one factory that just
actually
goes up the sky.
How about we let everybody else decide? Whilst I have a preference for being close to the Copper Desert purely because I quite like the idea of like big runic symbols that are down across there, like the old Nazca Plains. Who cares what I think? So the Skyfinger would be a great artifact of possibly the old one, stroke the dwarfs, that pops right above the mountains, high above the Spine of Sotek, as this single individual piece of effective tech that we're going to be using. So that's option number one. Option number two would be to move up towards the Halls of the Holy, which would take you further north in the Spine of Sotek.
Yeah, that almost sounds like it's more built into the mountains. Like it's a great set of halls built in the deep within the mountains themselves that goes down.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
What are some other locations we could mess with? We've got, let's see. You've got the Golden Colossus out towards the Mud Isles, which is very close to the Mind of the Bearded Skull. It's right on the edge of the Copper Desert.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Golden Colossus makes a lot of sense as well, as would the Dust Gate down at the bottom.
Yeah, that was the other one, yeah.
Dust Gate. So there's four clear, obvious choices. Okay, so let's give each one a different flavor so we actually understand what we're voting for. If we're going for the one in the north, that's the Halls of the Holy, we're going to be going for an ancient site of the ancestor gods, with all of the ancestor gods here with great statuary, and the location itself down underneath it in the halls. So that's what we're going to have. We're going to have quite a holy ancient site which is dedicated to the ancestor gods. If we're going for the Skyfinger, this is a tall tall, huge thing that points up high above the spine of Sotek, and dwarves are industriously working away within that. And we're going for the Dust Gate, that's down on the south end of Lustria. What different tone can we have for the Dust Gate, do you think?
I feel like the Dust Gate, I love the idea you were talking about of like this being this great rising edifice that comes out of the sands of the desert, and there's all these like symbols carved into the various deserts around it that almost act as like instructions or power nodes, and that I think this is almost like if you're going for that almost Dune imagery of like they're harvesting the Copper Desert for maybe materials that are buried within the sands, and it's this great, like it's almost out by itself in this really eerie like almost Lovecraftian sense of like you've got like the heat haze, and then there's suddenly just this fucking edifice that rises in the middle of nowhere.
Cool, that'll work nicely for the Dust Gate. And given that the Golden Colossus, the last of ours, is right down by the edge of the jungles as well, we could perhaps have this one like a Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs, with a great Golden Colossus, a great massive Dowie-like figure that stands guard over it, and the jungles that lie behind that are theirs, because we will be working upon a bunch of dwarves.
Like that it's called the Forbidden Jungle.
Yeah, totally. And I think that works quite well for potentially having our Dawi in that area. So the Golden Colossus is our jungle and big, huge dwarf statue option. Our ancestors and ancient civilization, old gods version is the one in the north. That's the, what was it? The Hall of the...
Also the Holy.
Halls of the Holy. Our massive spire that outspires any spire anywhere will be the Skyfinger. And then finally the Dust Gate down in the south, where they are gathering material from across the wastes down there. I'm quite liking where this is going. It's fun.
Yeah, me too. I'm having a lot of fun with this.
I have no idea where this is going to land, but this is pretty cool.
Okay, we have a lot more super chats. Herd Corval. Llama, giant guinea pig dwarf riders. Well, I think we'll have to decline on riding giant guinea pigs into battle. I do think llamas would be a notable part of their culture. I don't think they would ride them as battle piece, but I think
the same way that mules are a part of dwarven culture over in the east, that llamas and alpacas will be replacing that for the dwarfs. Humble
Scholar, given what Slan could do to mountains, not safe. Well, what's interesting is that these dwarves would have actually escaped when the Slan changed the continents on the other side of the world, which shifted all along those tectonic plates. In many ways, that actually supports y'all's going theory that these dwarves would have a much higher tech level. In many ways, they escaped one of the worst cataclysms because their holds, for the most part, the holds themselves would still be very intact. Like the underground portions would still be very solid and defended, as opposed to the far more weakened Dawi that we have over in the old world, who their holds were basically weaponized against them.
And I'll also say, Slan aren't their enemies.
Yeah, no, the Slan, they're meant to be here.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that there won't be wars between lizardman populations and dwarf populations. Absolutely. There will. Because not just because Warhammer, but also because many of the lizardmen are, to give it a very simple name, out of control. They're doing their own thing, which means that there's going to be conflict, regardless of what some ancient Slan who's sitting up there having a little meditation about for 500 years comes out and goes, you killed all the dwarves. Dudes, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Donovan, something that's very important for ancestor worship in societies, the Inca concept of Panacta. Basically, when the Emperor Sapa Inca died, their extended family would become an organization that maintained their mummy. However, they also maintained control of their holdings and had a lot of political sway within their empire. In particular, those of very successful Sapa Inca were major political factions even after their death.
I think that, particularly with the Mine of the Bearded Skull, that's potentially stuff that we would consider, but we're not building the civilization. So we're not discussing that because that vote hasn't been voted for. That is a really
cool idea. That you
okay, it's a super cool idea. And if we were building more of these, we'd be diving into that. We're going to be just building one single location, though.
Jonathan King, for these native dwarfs, why not have a new pantheon and not ancestor worship? Because they're still dwarfs.
They're still dwarves, and the dwarves came from their ancestor gods. There's no need for a new pantheon. The ancestor gods were around before the cataclysm. They were there right from the very beginning. When the dwarves were uplifted by the old ones, or however you wish to discuss it, the ancestor gods were a core component of that process. And all dwarves all over the world were connected together by the ancestor gods. And they spread out through the various spines of the world. And it works very well that they're in the spine of Sotek. I think what we're building here is 100% Warhammer. This doesn't feel like it's something that's alien or weird or we're doing just because we happen to be doing it. I think this feels Warhammer.
Yeah, get your votes in because this is the first one in a while where I've seen the top one going like it's changed. Y'all are really split on this, which is delightful. Necroplayer, as someone who likes Ancient Planes, it's pronounced Saxawoman.
Yeah, sexy woman.
I know. Woman. Oh my gosh. It's also some credible theories suppose the use of clay models and a soap-like substance to help build the blocks slide and logs for rolling.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch, because I read a lot about this when I was a kid, and I've sort of half kept up with it as various archaeologists have attempted to install new ideas on top of the ones that were first posited back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on. One of the ones that always amused me most was that the one archaeologist who said, literally, this was the interview. So they didn't have wheels? No. What about this toy with wheels on it? It's literally a llama, little wheels on the bottom, move around. That's just a kid's toy. They didn't have wheels.
Oh.
All I could do was go, dude, engage your brain.
Well, I feel like there's a part of that guy that was like, well, they're not like a white Western civilization.
Oh, it's really close. Look, it's bouncing around still a bit.
Hoplite, dial it up to an 11. Not llamas, but llamas.
Llama number L. Boop, 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 boop,
Ricky Chapman, here's something fun. Runic control smiths. A runesmith that can control the enslaved wildlife using runic collars. They don't ride them.
I think that's a really good idea, and if we're doing that, I also see no reason that they wouldn't necessarily ride them, going against everything we said previously. And that's because we're now building a strong story for why they'd be doing this. Also, because we've had a giant bribe thrown our way saying they probably should be ridden.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest arguments that you often see made is for the old world dwarves about why they don't use beasts is because they see them as too unreliable. But runic collars would completely remove that limitation.
Yeah, it gets over the dwarven psychology where a new idea comes along and the dwarves go, but does it work? And they spend a few centuries determining whether it does. And if it does, their guilds then accept it, having seen that the last 400 experiments paid off, and they then eventually accept it. So that never really works for animals. You bring in a bunch of animals and say, does it work? And every other answer is, yeah, no, they ran away. They got scared of this. This didn't work. This didn't go. So animals are not really a dwarfy thing. But with runic control collars, now we're talking about dwarves going, yes, it was reliable. Unfortunately, we wished it had run away and got scared because the huge demon came along and we all died on top of this beastie.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, there's some fights there, particularly as well. If you view it from the Warhammer Fantasy Battle rule set, you'd probably be looking for these things having immunity for psychology, unless the runic controller gets killed, meaning that they all go out of control and the beasties start bouncing around all over the battlefield.
Yeah, that's fun. Fun. No, that's fun.
That just makes it a laugh, doesn't it?
That is time. It was very close. All the locations actually had a really good amount of support. But the ultimate winner ends up being, including with keeping in mind Twitch stuff, the Sky Finger.
Alrighty, so what we've got is a huge finger of the gods going right up. So our gigantic Sky Finger, it feels, I think, quite dwarf. This feels Dawi. This feels like something that they would be working in and around. So the location that we're building is high. This isn't one that's down close to the lowlands. We're talking one that's really high. And it also has a purpose. So what that purpose is, I think, is something we should probably discuss sooner rather than later. Yep. So we get an idea of the sort of dwarfs that we've got working here. We know that this place is going to be some form of mine or manufactory or some equivalent. It's making stuff. The core, I suppose, story we built so far is probably runic collars or something similar, are almost certainly coming from this place. But why does that require a big, huge spire? What is it about that that's used? Is that place used for a reason you don't expect? Is it gathering winds of magic in a way you don't expect? Is there something going on with that? There's a lot of different potential stories here that we need to cover.
Yeah. So throw your ideas out. It's a giant magnet to draw in more star metal. I mean, if it was a place to manufacture old one metal, which would probably be a deeply elaborate, difficult, time-consuming process, that would still be huge.
Well, yeah, what it could be doing, at the bottom of it, there could be a centrifuge. Okay, basically an enormous spinny device which allows you to form Gromril, something that is almost impossible to form without a long process. Rune masters doing their thing over ages until eventually beating them out into very small plates. You get lots of Gromril armor, Gromril weapons, but they don't do big Gromril because the metal's just too hard to work, too difficult to work. But if we've got ourselves a big centrifuge, we can get extreme heats in here. Possibly it goes down and uses the blood of the world. It uses lava and similar super hot material in the bottom to power from beneath for the heat needed to reforge the Gromril, where you could have the spire itself dragging the winds of magic, grabbing Azir, grabbing Heish, grabbing all of the winds down it. It's an ancient artifact of the old ones that grabs all of the winds of magic down towards the forge that sits in the heart of it. So ultimately, if we were taking that option number one, if we went with that, would be it's a forge.
Yeah. So option number one is a forge. We have a couple of people suggesting an idea that it's a great signal tower that allows them to control all of these old one tech things that they create. That it's which would make it really fucking important.
That's a cool one. I like that quite a lot. So instead of going with it's a forge, what we instead have is it's the central point of runic magic that is throwing out a core runic message, for want of a better description, that allows all of their various collars to work elsewhere, up and down the length.
That could be cool. Of like the dwarfs there, like, could even have their own theories about, they don't know, but they fear that if it were to ever fall, rune magic across the world would just cease to function. Like, they believe it's the heart of all rune magic.
Yeah, I think they definitely would think that. I think that's quite cool. And they can also use it to do things like disrupt Lizardman control over their beasts, which maybe cause beasts to go crazy, they get too close to it. In many respects, you could then add an ancient story to it about the dragon that went mad beneath it. Perhaps there is a wild dragon at the very heart of it at the bottom that helps fuel it. They're tapping into the ancient blood of an ancient dragon that allows it to do that. This. After all, dwarves and dragons come hand in hand. They are constantly working each other. So having some form of story that works off both works good. So I think that works nicely. Do we have a third option?
Yep. Keep an eye out for various third options and stuff. Let's see.
So we've got one from Humble Scholar, a gigantic stone monolith detailing all of the dwarf ancient history. Now, this is quite fun because generally, if we look at the stories of the New World from the perspective of the Old World, the New World is always seen as being this great repository of ancient knowledge that has been lost from ancient lost civilizations. That is generally how it's used in a pulp fashion. So, for example, if the dwarves of the Old World were to come over, they could find out the secrets of the birth and the origin of their own species. So if that is the case, I would say the third option would be that this gigantic pillar into the sky is not just the repository of the foundation point of all dwarfs, it's where the first dwarves came into the world.
That could be fun. Of like, there's that whole thing of like the dwarfs, the ancestor gods, they have their myth of like, we were born from rock, we were born from the mountain, that this was where the dwarfs were made, and
this is where it happened. So that, I think that's a great third option. So all we need is one more, of which there's quite a lot of ideas there.
Like, this is a fourth option, that it's not at all what the dwarfs even think it is. Like, it was just a skyport for the mightiest of the old one shits, but they think it's something far more complex than what it actually is. Or it's far more.
There's quite a few ideas along the ideas, like an old one weather station.
A weather station? That's
manipulation
really
tech. That's pretty cool. Or a drill. There's a few giant drills. Drills or a drill might be called a sky drill. Drilling upwards, possibly even at the end of the Cataclysm, it was a weapon that was designed to help destroy Morsleb. That was being built near the end. Yeah, totally. Yeah. It could be quite literally a rocket to try and get the dwarfs off planet when the end of the world occurs. There's all sorts of cool other ideas. Yeah, indeed, as they say, on silver ships they came, which is still one of the my favorite lines that I wrote in Warhammer. It always makes me smile. So yeah, that's a fun one. On silver ships they came. It could be a skyport. So which one are we going to go for the last one?
We're getting into a cargo cult territory. If it was like a,
I agree completely, Biofoot. Particularly if you. Add the equivalent of the remnant of an orbital elevator. All those similar ideas. If anyone's played Stellar Blade, there's a really good orbital elevator in Stellar Blade. Plus, quite a fun game.
Yep. Okay, how do we narrow that down to 4?
Okay, so well, I think we got 3 solid ones, and the last one I think is a piece of old one tech that's misunderstood, and then we can decide what it is.
All right, so let's lay those out again. So we have piece of misunderstood tech.
Misunderstood tech. We've got it's a forge with a great centrifuge at the bottom, and the spire is collecting magic that allows them to create all of their runic items. So forge is option 2. Option 3 was it's the signal tower for their a runic signal tower.
Yeah, runic signal tower.
And what was 4 again?
The great history, the great
yeah, that's cool.
The origin place,
the origin of the dwarfs. It's where the dwarfs first came in from the glittering realm, and it's where the first dwarfs walked on the Warhammer world. They first arrived here, and then by using the past of the old ones, they moved out to the other mountain holds across the world. I kind of love that.
Yeah,
these are all great. These are all really cool. For different reasons. I really love these. You guys rock.
And once again, keep in mind if you're watching this that we are not gods. So if you are watching this, you're like, oh, they went with that, but I really wish they had done this other thing. That's what I would have done. You can change or use or disabuse or whatever, anything and everything that comes up at these streams, because we are not in charge by any means. So have fun with it.
Yeah, and we've got obviously our Discord channels over for Lorebeards. Dive into the Lorebeards server, and there's going to be a topic, I presume, over there. Hawk! That I presume is over there. Go drop your ideas in there, or just build your own thread saying, this is what I would like it to be. Oh, I love this.
Yeah. Whoa there. It's potentially like we have a lot of. We still have a bit of a queue, so like maybe pitch the idea first.
So, Friday, every time that someone does this, we will always pretty much do something with it, but it's got to be something that is adjacent to what we would do anyway. So if you said, here, take $100 to do, I don't know, Star Wars, we're going to say no. We're going to say thanks for the $100. But if it's going to be something like Face Flare, we've already said you got to drop like $1,000 in us wanting to do that, because fucking hell no. But at the same point, it looks like it's probably going to happen so much as being added to the fund. So it's already up. Thanks, Hawk. You kick ass. So yeah, have a chat if you've got one, but broadly, yeah, we'll probably figure it out.
Sean and Wolf, you want an Andean Mountain Road network, you'd have these wild rope and plank bridges, but they'd follow the terrain. You'd always be up in the mountain passes, not in the mountain peaks, because those are too high up and dangerous to walk, but they were high-tech roads with signage and set right of way. I believe British walk on left for the actual ones, but our dwarf ones would be crazy.
Yeah, they'd be pretty crazy. I quite like the idea of those, but we haven't really discussed the broader civilization. Yeah, but you can figure that one out for yourself, but yeah.
Provincia, with old
Holy crap, this one's close. All four have almost got the same.
Oh, get your votes in. Get your votes in. This one, and it's all over the place. Fight. Yeah, so get your votes in. Promesa, with old ones, hatchlings that amalgamated with their machinery, they probably make a portal. So hatchling is not making new eggs, but teleport. Oh, you mean for like lizardman hatchlings? That they're like parts of their machines in a sense, and maybe it's a portal. I don't know if I 100% am picking up what you're setting down here. It's the how spawning pools work is a total clusterfuck mystery, which probably should always be kept a mystery, to be very honest. The second you answer that, I think they will lose a lot of their goodness. But yeah, weird stuff. Formisa, we could bind the Blood Bowl Death Roller to this location because it looks like a big grass cutter.
I mean, it's actually a grass roller. It was designed to roll down the field. It's basically one gigantic roller. They called it a death roller, obvly, because
maybe that's how they made the roads that go across the peaks. Is they had the actual death roller just rolling along.
Yeah, at the moment, the leading one is at 27%, and two behind her at 25%. And all it'll take is one or two of you going and moving your vote around or voting for a different thing to shift entirely.
I got Twitch. Twitch had a 3-way tie, so Twitch is
holy crap. So yeah, if you want to vote now, and you will make a difference.
The whole name could be Karak Pinata. That is also 1987. Games Workshop, thank you.
That's a Nigel Stillman special.
It is indeed. Ricky Chapman, hear us out. Dwarf Runic Pod Racer Chariots. We will not hear you out.
Now that's pod racing.
Dwarfs were never meant to go this fast. Jonathan King, they were in charge of making a runic control collar to control a dragon.
Yeah, I quite like the idea that there's possibly a dragon that's controlled at the bottom by runic collar, and they use the dragon's breath to do something or something similar.
I mean, hey, you think about how Draugner's breath was used to make Widowmaker.
Exactly. I mean, it's powerful shit if you've got one of the old dragons. So yeah, that would work really rather well.
Okay, and that is time.
We have a winner.
And the winner is by 4% the Runic Signal Tower.
Alrighty, so what is it doing, folks? Clearly, if that many of you have voted for this over the other options, you've got some ideas as to exactly what this runic signal tower is doing. What we've got is a great, one presumes, silvery tower into the sky that is covered with runes, likely alight with bluish energy, as dwarf runes are often depicted, and crackling with energy. But what is it doing?
I just have to call out these two people that commented literally back to back. Ben Hurrison, Ben Gurrison. You two are on the exact same fucking mind length there.
I just also pop out. Alaric Mad did also use Dragonfire. You're right.
He did,
because
a hilariously vacant explanation for how the fuck that went down.
Yeah, there was no explanation. It's just proper stupid. So what we've got is a great silvery tower that disappears off into the sky that is sending out something. What is it sending? What are these dwarves doing? We are aware already that these dwarves have got runic collars that are controlling local animals. Is it to do with that, or is it something else? What do you all think?
Yeah, because there is the great story about how when the old ones came to Lustria, the lizardmen, there was the taming of the beasts. Where there was the great effort to bring all of the creatures in Lustria under the heel of the old ones and the lizardmen. And those that didn't, such as perhaps the Lustrian dragons or other notable threats that couldn't be controlled, were put down.
Perhaps this is also one of the reasons why there was no easy dragons in the area, because it basically drove them off. So it's not so much that all the dragons were killed, it's that the dragons were driven off by the equivalent of a keep the dragons the fuck away from here device.
Yeah, like you've seen the movie Hoppers. It's the big device that does the supersonic thing that no one else can hear.
Yeah, quite. So do we have any ideas in the chat?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm not gonna write those down just yet, but like throw out your ideas about what is this thing sending out? What is it doing? Formicia, Skyfigure is used in order to make their hatchling upgraded portal working that I mentioned before. With the mentioned before, are you talking about this mentioned before?
Yeah,
So when we were talking about old one hatchlings, are you talking about like actual old ones, or are you talking about like lizardmen? That's the part that I'm struggling to keep up with. Darman, so useful fact: the most common Inca weapons were axes, chictana. However,
Yep.
instead of hammers, I suggest these dwarves could use an Inca weapon called a chumpy, basically a mace with a 6-pointed star head. It kind of looks like putting a cog on the end of a shaft. That's cool. And
Yeah,
feels
something
very
like that.
dwarfy.
Quite like that. Yep, quite like that.
Donovan, if you want a suggestion of what the finger could look like as a steep Andean mountain, I suggest Mont Fitzroy.
Look at that while you're going through the chats.
Yep. Hoplite. Play on the death whistle. Giant figure carving that catches winds of magic for power, creating a loud shriek. Also, obsidian blades fit the region. They would actually probably have obstinite blades rather than obsidian blades, which is the harder stone variant that doesn't break easy, which is what the lizardmen use.
Yep.
Which actually, these dwarves would be fucking terrifying anti-magic because they would have that material. They would be absolute experts at killing magic things. All right, so we have let's see, we also have another Cole Patterson. The Incas had builds along their roads called quilquas, storehouses filled with excess food and other supplies that were given to the army, officials, and populace when needed. Feels quite dwarfy to me. I agree.
Yeah, it does.
Like nice, and they would be well hidden too. Would be the nice thing is you'd have these little like well hidden disguised storehouses all over the place. Oh wow, look at that. Man, that's gorgeous.
Nice glacier. Some nice mountainy bits. Yeah, love that.
That's just a pretty place. I need to go down there at some point. Fried weed. Perhaps it itself is a giant controller for something gigantic in the ground. So okay, let's Dolly Forever. The runic signal could be a key part of calling the ancestors from the glittering realm. That would suggest
it could actually suggest it's broken.
Yeah, that could suggest that it no longer works.
Yeah.
But
it's still doing something, because one of the core themes of Lustria, and indeed to a degree Warhammer, is the thing that they have. They think they know what it is and they're wrong, and it's a bit broken. It's now doing something else and it's being used in a different way. It could, for example, be a gigantic thing that is drawing upon all the magical fields from all the runes and basically recording dwarven stories. It would have been a repository of the memories of the dwarfs, but it's now broken and it's just inscribing like mad and doing other stuff. And they now use the inscription machines at the bottom to inscribe their runes that they use to control other things, not realizing that they're losing their own history by using it in a different way. A classic piece
that'd be tragic. Yeah, that'd be super
classic piece
tragic.
of tragic story building. And whenever you're dealing with the dwarves, you often think of, but where's the tragedy? Because the dwarves are a pretty tragic group in general. And that would be a fun way of doing it. This great device, which is inscribing all sorts of stuff that they can't understand, and they're repurposing it and reusing it to do what they need and they think is important. You could even combine, since the vote was so close, some of the different elements from some of the other ideas for why this tower exists.
And then
he reckons we missed some of the ones.
I'm using my cheat sheet to look. Oh yeah. So Donna Man, thank you. So likely not going to be included in this location, but a notable location that could be along the spine of Sotek Mountains. Look up the Rainbow Mountain of Vinichunka.
Why not?
Which is Vinacunca.
Vinichunka?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Fucking hell, yeah. I mean, it's just cool. I don't know which one of these many images to choose from. I'm just going with this one because it gives you a nice mixture of different. I'll be down on one. Let me just bring that up. Present image. Take a look at that, Rainbow Boy.
Okay, there's that one. Oh, those are slick.
Yeah, there's lots of more artistic versions of it, images that are taken from specific angles to show you just how rainbow and crazy it all is. But yeah, definitely can't go wrong with
so cool because you can like have so much theory crafting for why it would look like that in the Warhammer world of like it's like
the
maybe
winds
the
of
rock
magic.
is,
The winds of magic have come in and they've flushed out around and they've changed all of the rock and the mountains around it.
Yeah, the other one we missed was some other stuff from Inca that should be included. Mita, mandatory labor tithe. Mitma, forced relocation. Ani, reciprocity, based on the idea that anything is connected. Paruka, hilltop fortresses. Kolka, fortified storehouses. Tambo, administrative military centers along the road. And Quipu, the Inca knot system of record keeping.
Love all of that, but that's civilization stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not tackling that. But
yeah.
Yes. Okay, so working on what is our tower, what is the point of it? Like, what is the communication?
What's the signal? Is it signals going out or is it signals coming in?
Yeah,
because it could be the opposite. The obvious route is it's sending out some form of signal because signal tower is the top one, but it could be a receiver rather than a broadcaster.
So we have receiving and drawing once magic put into the ley lines. You could do something like that. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that kind of already does that, but it could also just be the pinnacle of that. I know we talked earlier about. I think a good option is the idea of it putting out. Let's
go for the obvious options. One is the control signal.
Yes.
So that'd be one. So one is control. Let's go for 2 out and 2 in. So the second one that's going out instead of control could be what?
No, that's what I think they would believe it does, but not what it actually does.
Quite.
Let's see. We have Donoman. So the tower suggestion, it could be a giant stealth field for their whole culture.
A bit Skaven, so I'd like dwarf you don't really think stealth. That's more high elves and what they do with their magic. High elves do that too with their shifting sands. And if you go over to the wood elves and they're casting all their spells to hide themselves, it'd be nice to get something that was a bit different. So we're set. This is a broadcast option. Something like that though might be quite nice, Dino Man. Not quite a stealth field, but it's doing something. It's projecting something out. It could be the first one was the first one's control, isn't it? For the beasties.
Let's see. Stabilizes and augments the geomantic web. So there's a number of people wanting the geomantic web involvement, which it could be a part of.
It could, but that's sort of old one-y. And if it was, I mean, by that, and by me slan, the chance of there not being a slan here be almost none.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the slan would come to reclaim it, unless they were told not to. A golden plaque tells them not to, but you're basically writing redundancies in.
This is where the dwarfs go when they die.
A battery that houses the grid. Now, so this is a receiver. We're looking for a projector at the moment. Okay, so we're project out first. We'll do our 2 reception ones in a moment. We need something that's getting projected outwards.
Yep. Let's see.
Giant force field that projects the world from the sun. It's a magical ozone layer. To a degree, we have a variety of options like that in the Warhammer world, where there is clearly, okay, well, let's go with the obvious one. We opened the stream with it. Tech. Tech doesn't work in the Warhammer world. It's borked.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that, and I got this.
Doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? We don't know. There is a great inhibitor. It could be the great inhibitor. Now, why would you do that? We have an obvious reason. During the Cataclysm, when shit came through those gates, if we go with the whole of Warhammer, that means almost certainly tech was coming through that gate, far beyond anything that they could cope with there. Technology was far higher. Khorne almost certainly came in with big, huge demonic engines. After all, we know that Khorne has them. Big, huge, massive juggernauts, the brass scorpion, all the rest of them. But if you've got this, suddenly tech has a weird limit. It could be broadcasting out a great field that holds back the worst that can be brought through the gates, and equally holds back tech across the world as a whole. So basically, it's an enormous field that the dwarves themselves don't truly understand, but in some respects, it is responsible for keeping the Warhammer world at a relatively consistent tech level that never goes. And if this ever went off, suddenly the orcs would have tech everywhere.
Yeah,
they'd start. The mech boys would start.
So many cultures. Many cultures around the world would suddenly start rapidly advancing, which would
because there's something holding them back, and we opened the stream with that, so we could put that as option number 2. So the next one is reception. So 2 reception options.
So I like the idea of that. This is actually where all the dwarf souls go when they die. That this is almost like this is where the glittering realm is contained. It's building up to something.
Yeah, how about we combine that with one of the earlier ideas as well, which is that all the runes that are cast are sort of pulled into here. It's basically the great repository of dwarf, whether that's souls, dwarf knowledge, or whatever. And the dwarfs who are living here might not understand what they're doing, but it's the great repository of all dwarf.
Yeah, I like that because that still gives them that opportunity to accidentally be abusing or damaging it. Without realizing it, thinking that they're doing something important or great. Okay, so we need one more of what is it receiving?
Perhaps it's receiving nothing. And by that I mean, what this is one gigantic device that they're tending, they don't truly understand, but for their reasons from ancestor worship, they completely revere all of their old traditions to keep it maintaining this machine that's constantly churning, doing stuff, and they're always waiting for something to come. Perhaps it's a message from the old ones. Perhaps it's a message from the gods. They'll all have their own traditions. So basically, it's a giant antenna, and they have no idea what the fuck it's for. And the thing is a mystery, rather than it's a mystery that we write an answer for during the creation process.
Sure, I'm down for that.
Cool. So it could be, for example, used to receive signals from the planets in the solar system. It could be used for all of those things. It'd be a super fun location to potentially visit as a bunch of PCs in a game of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. You visit the place, and they've been doing this for thousands of years. And then when the PCs arrive, a message is received.
Yeah, and that's fun because then you could have a bunch of like different factions as well that live within it. About like some believe that it's related to the old one, some believe it's like, no, that's ridiculous, it has to do with the ancestor gods.
In fact,
like,
each clan could have their own opinion. So each one of the clans that tend it have their own opinion as to what this is for, and they've been bickering and arguing about it for thousands of years as to what's the most important part. And one of those clans perhaps thinks it should be destroyed, that maybe this is the key to the end of the world, and if it's not destroyed, it all goes wrong. So you can get yourself some really fun conflict out of that.
Yeah. Repository.
Yeah, I love that. There's all sorts of craziness here.
That fun fact, always that fun moment where you come up to a word and you're like, I know that word, I have to remember how to spell it for half a second. Okay, let me just post this stuff over to here, and then we will be
grabbing some more super chats.
Rock and roll. Grab that. Put that there.
Fuck's sake, Hawk. Seriously? As long as the sky finger isn't a suppository. Fuck me.
Was the cataclysm just a failed health check?
Fucking hell.
Runic control center. Okay, there we go. All right, polls are up. The great inhibitor is that this is the thing that we've spoken about a lot on Lorebeards that is limiting the tech of the Warhammer Fantasy world. This is actually the great causer of that all along. Flipping off nails. You have the mysterious message receiver, which we talked a bit about the most recently. You have the repository of dwarf souls and runes, which is that all runes, when they're used, all dwarves, when they die, are drawn to this place, and that it then perhaps outputs them in a way, and this is something that's accidentally being abused and used. Sends out runic control magic would be that this is the thing that perhaps keeps the dragons out of Lustria and other horrible things. It's protecting something. but it also allows the dwarves to more finely control all of the various technology that they use and produce from this place. And if it were to ever be sabotaged or destroyed, it would be a big uh-oh moment. Massive uh-oh moment, in fact. While y'all are voting, we have
quite a few super chats coming in.
Donovan, could be a giant observatory to observe the deep cosmos, or a comms array to try and connect to the old ones. So yeah, which is basically one of the options we end up with.
Yeah, the mysterious message receiver is the second of your options there.
Yeah, I would lean more into that. Actually, is pretty fun as well, because there's a Lizardman device that does something similar, where its whole point is to try and receive message from the old ones. And there was like an incident, but the Lizardman's is far more low tech. And there was even it's like the Sentinels of Hearing, or the Sentinels of the something, but it's something the Lizardman like built to try and hear from the old ones, and it's very low tech compared to a lot of their stuff. And there was even an incident where a skink priest thought he heard something, like thought he heard a message from the old ones, and he called the Salon. The Salon had a big deliberation about it, and they ended up being like, "Nah, you're just dumb," and they left. But the story is implied that he did hear something, but the Salon he just couldn't prove it.
Yeah, and we're also dealing with it's just worth noting on this one, we're dealing with a galaxy spanning species with the old ones, which means that because they also have the ability to look into the future and see what is potentially coming, they can set off signals.
Yep, throw a message,
throw the message out, and at the speed of light it comes. So all they need to do is go 8,000 light years away, send a signal. And then it comes 8,000 years later, and ping, suddenly things light up all over the place. So old one tech doing stuff. I mean, we have things like this in the real world, where people, astronomers are gazing up into the sky and going, "Hey, look at this star. It's been eating this other star beside it for a while. It's got a big, massive dust cloud around it. The star has vanished, which means it's about to do the big explosion again. It explodes once every 80 years. We know this occurs." And then someone says, "Yes, but it's 3,000 light years away," which means that thing, the one that we'll be watching, happened over 3,000 years ago, and in fact has happened another like 50 times in that time. As you go, oh yeah, space, it's happened 50 times in the time. Yeah, so the old ones are working with this as their base standard. So the idea that it's receiving a message of that ilk is not at all daft. Anyway, we've got quite a number of them.
Wait, a giant rune on Lustria? Basically a gigantic added layer of protection, so big that it might as well be an enchanted continent. I feel like that would have worked well if we were going for the dust, if we had gone with the Dustgate option, with the idea of like it's like it almost carved all these great things in the sand. But I do like that idea a lot. And that would also do well for like there are sky sigils. They put them on the wrong place because Warhammer, but the Warhammer great sky symbols are on like the eastern side of Lustria for some reason. Humble Scholar projects the Salon's magic outwards towards the old world, but the dwarves broke it on purpose after the Age of Woe. That would be interesting with the dwarves deliberately
and spicy potential story there.
Necroplayers, something to keep in touch with the ancestors, gives them a reason not to collapse like the Chaos Dwarfs did. I wouldn't say the Chaos Dwarfs collapsed.
Yeah, the Chaos Dwarves were brought to the edge of despair.
Yeah.
And Hashut came and went, "Hey kids, Dad's back."
Skylar Martin, dwarf who's the official bunny ear TV antenna adjuster for the tower. Move that one to the left. Shut up. I know what I'm doing. I almost had it. Just for thousands of years, micro adjusting.
Well, there is something potentially. That's one of the ones we land on, which is the idea that the different clans have all got different time slots to try and basically point it. And they've all got their own.
Each other sometimes.
They all hate each other's different theories. Yeah, there's definitely something in that.
All right, I'm going to give y'all just another couple seconds because the vote is very, 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 very close. I hope someone grabbed the Twitch one because I missed it like I always do, like a freaking dingus. I'll grab like 2 more super chats. Cole Patterson, the Inca were indeed a clannish society. There were Aulis, commoner clans, and Panakas, royal clans, as I understand it. Love it. Great. Y'all really want us to talk about culture stuff. because it's cool. It's very, very cool. Dynaman. So Andy's commented about the giant salt licks before. That actually combines two close by locations in the Andes. So in Antiplano, Big Plateau, Salar de Uyuni, the largest salt flat on Earth, as well as Lake Titicaca. Hold your last.
Titicaca is the one I was thinking of.
We all know about good old Titicaca. The largest, the highest large lake on Earth. Both are about 1/3 to half as big as Wales in surface area.
And it's so freaking deep as well. It's a cool place. Huge. Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you, Twitch. Okay, thank you. All right, and
that's super close.
Is time.
Okay, what we got?
So this may be one where we kind of meld them a bit.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to know who's won then, everyone? In first position is the Great Inhibitor, i.e. this thing is turfing out a massive worldwide field, an energy, a magic. The runes up and down its length that the dwarves clearly were designed to put in place. In many respects, the runic magic put in place here could have been the ancestor gods themselves that helped build this. And it is inhibiting technology across the world to try and save it. Because the world, come the cataclysm, is screwed. And whatever comes through that great gate will be horrific. But it also has a downside in that all of the greatest tech of the old ones now just sit dormant. Not doing as much as they could. There's all manner of stuff that works purely because of magic. And some of it's been awoken because of magic and great magical fields. A lot of the Slann are left confused then because the great devices that they understood no longer did or do what they used to do. So that gives you a lovely end time story as well for when this place goes and suddenly all the old one tech lights up. The lizardmen can leave the Warhammer world as their great pyramid cities rise up. Couldn't do that before.
You also have the fun fact that this almost ties into, I can't remember the name of the novel, but this kind of ties in well to a novel that I read once. And also I want to grab this comment just real fast of Kelsey. I agree, and they wouldn't be dwarves if you did that. They wouldn't be dwarves. You have to remember that these are supposed to be dwarves. A lot of what we're kind of calling out are like
cool ideas and influences.
Influences you can call upon, but you're right, it shouldn't be 1-to-1 by any stretch. So there's a book I remember reading that had ideas similar to this, where there's like, I can't remember the name of the book, but the point of the book is that like humanity, Earth went tits up, people left, went on a new planet, and the people on that planet built a satellite that inhibits humanity on that new planet from developing tech. Like they can't even come up with chariots because this satellite is like forcing them to not come up with warlike ideas, and they live in a utopia. But over the course of thousands of years, it starts to break down. And every time a piece of it breaks down, people have started to figure out like little ways around it. Or like some people have started to realize that they're forgetting an idea they had. So they like write something down, then they forget. They look at this piece of paper and go, that's weird. They start like sussing it out. So you could have this idea of that the Skyfinger over the many thousands of years, because the dwarves don't know how to maintain it, it is very slowly, just bits and pieces of it breaking down. Like maybe with every great incursion of chaos, some of the runes die, or some of the like little cracks appear along it. And the dwarfs, some of the dwarfs think that this is a good thing. Some of them think it's a bad thing. And we also if we're tying it in with the Great Receiver as well, they're also messing with it. Which is why maybe some races in the Warhammer world are able to have these leaps of technological progress very suddenly, because like a part of it has like been messed with or shooken or something. We have like the whole idea with the Skaven being that the Skaven have some kind of unique either resistance to it.
They don't need it. They've got magic. They're using magic rather than tech. So we don't need help. If we take a look at the weird high tech that Warhammer has, all of it is interlaced with magic. So it's magic that allows them to get around what this place is offering. So the Skaven completely answered. Things like the great mechanical horses or crazy creatures that the Empire have made, they all make sense because they're using magic as a core component of how it all works. That doesn't mean a wizard made it. There is Shamon within these things, which can grant it with capabilities. Metals have got utility that real world metals don't. And so there's ways to get around tech caps by using magic instead. And I think that gives us a neat answer for all of it, while simultaneously pulling on the story suggested there. We've got the idea that as some runes have broken down, we've had early spikes of technological awareness. And as they hammer those runes back in place, some tech stops working again. And that's something that we've sort of half seen with a variety of tales down through Warhammer's history, where if you go back to 1492, and I can't believe that it's 1492, but it is, during 1492, when Lustria was found, discovered, they had full black powder tech. They had cannons. They had everything. Over they came with all of that and started crushing everything in their and before them. Yet 1,000 years worth of development, they rediscover this tech multiple times. It's in the lore where they say, and dwarves passed over black powder tech to the Empire after the date that had already been given to the Old World, and the Old World had it. Cannons had to be reinvented on more than one place. And this is a way for us to take the inconsistencies of the different writers who didn't bother reading all of the previous work. So we can say that black powder technology is discovered multiple times and also stops working multiple times because of this great device, and the dwarves that are desperately trying to hammer it back into place and stop the world devolving. Yeah. And the war they're fighting, they think, is against the Chaos Gods, because they're stopping things like, I don't know if you ever saw any of those old models from 3rd edition Warhammer, but about half of them had tech. We had Tzeentch sorcerers with fucking las pistols. We had Khornate warriors with freaking las cannons. They were sitting there with mechanical bits over them.
Mechanical monstrosities. But more and more of them are creeping into the world.
Yeah.
Also, I actually like this to of like, I wouldn't say it's necessary because the elves are too close, but maybe because the elves are such a magical species that they resonate with the Great Inhibitor. So they hit a point, they're like, we're satisfied. Like,
I think you've got a better one. They've got time. They've seen that it fails.
Yeah.
So they take what they know they can rely upon, and they use magic to enhance it.
I actually like that way better, is they know what sticks.
Yep. Completely understand what sticks.
And that's really cool, because then if you're like a wandering party, you could find a piece of elf tech that was built once upon a time that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and it also speaks to why the dwarves are so uncertain about technological advances, and they're constantly, because if you look at the old world dwarves, they are constantly checking and rechecking. Does this tech work? Can we rely on it this time? Does it work? Do these cannons work? I've had a crazy idea. We could rifle our guns. Yeah, stop. Let's try this for a few hundred years. No, it stopped working. No, we can't do that. Okay, it gives a different layer to why the dwarves act the way they act, and why the Empire, with super short memories, because they're humans. By the time a generation's passed and another generation's passed, they've all forgotten it. They read an old book and they're like, we just tried that. None of that shit works. What the fuck?
Yeah,
rifling is a stupid technology.
Yeah, that works well for like Grand Cathay as well, or like another damn patch. Yeah. That works well for like how Cathay is super duper like anal, for lack of a better term, about how they develop their tech very carefully and personally, individually. It's like it's a very passed down from a family thing, and their tech has developed, like it has these little moments, but then it stagnates for thousands of years.
I do think, Brock, that you're spot on here. One of the core things should be patchwork engineers that are there to actually install patches, literal patches, into the crumbling parts of the machine and the device as they're going in to basically hammer in the runes again to make the whole thing work the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, and this also builds up so nicely to the end times narrative of like when you look at the Warhammer world from a global scale, and then the tech leaps that happened like the 10 to 50 years before the end times. Yeah. Like everyone starts inventing like fucking like the dwarfs. If you're like a classic dwarf fan, the 8th edition army book was so whack because they came up with like all these crazy new weapons, like the runic fire spewers and all this stuff, where they were like, what the fuck is this shit? And this would explain why there's all these sudden massive leaps. Yeah, and it could be the dragons might have a resistance to it. Like, which is why the Cathayan dragons are able to find a workaround, because the dragons, remember, even if they're humans, don't.
Yeah, and this is arguably, if we run with the story, this is arguably one of the most important sites in the Warhammer world now, because this is what stops it falling to the Greenskins. The Greenskins can never, ever do what Greenskins do, which is warg it up. Genetically within them is all of the necessary knowledge to build all of the weapons they need to build, vehicles, everything else. And it just breaks. Nothing that they build. It could be a super fun aside where you find a bunch of orc encampments are filled with just broken bits of vehicle that they built that don't work.
Yeah, I mean, that would explain, like, Stotlings and stuff. And I also really like, this would also do an interesting explanation of why the orcs in the new world seem so much baser than the ones that are further away. Like the ones in Lustre are almost purely just savage orcs and forest goblins. Like they lack, they're so much more rudimentary than the greenskins that are further away in other parts of the world.
Nice wee one. Oh, sorry, you bring that one up too.
Hear me out. Quipu were the Inca not record keeping in knots. What if you have that as the wiring in the system is like these great runic knots?
It's very possible you could do it as runic, as in they're carved into the stone, and they do runic knots, quite literal runic knots into the. So the wiring is more like etheric flows that are going down the sides of the stone. From the top of the antennae.
Instead of it being like a cord that carries a charge, it would be like written glyphs that carry the magical charge.
Yeah, all carved into it. And when they're working properly. That would explain
why this place needs to be so fucking huge too, because like the runic combination in order to have this kind of reality warping global effect would need to be absolutely substantial.
Indeed. Just to bring up this one, Revan, we're also doing this because we already said that we would be. But the receiver part is uncertain. We don't know what it's for, but it's a core component of what the device is. They're maintaining a device that they don't truly understand anyway. So the dwarves that are here aren't sitting there going, we need to keep all of these runes in place because if we don't, the orcs go mad or coordinate machines will come running through our world. They're just maintaining, for traditional reasons, what their families, their clan groups tell them they have to maintain. But they also, a whole bunch of others who are maintaining it not as a transmitter, but as a receiver. And they are arguing that all of them have got their own various reasons for what they think that it does.
This is our source of conflict.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, totally.
Thomasant, I love you brought this up. How did the Torch feel about this anti-tech field? They have Hashit, and Hashit knows how it works.
Yeah, and they've got round it by using demons.
Yeah.
They've got around it entirely.
How to go around it.
Yeah, so Hashit's probably aware of some on the other side of the frickin' world. What the case was going to do? Not a great deal. It's one of those things that's on the great list of things that we would like to stop, but hey, we're on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
And given that a great number of machines that they would love to use kind of don't work, the obvious one, which would be create a fleet and go around to the other side of the world, is probably going to fail.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. Oh yeah, there it is. Maybe the signal to inhibit is coming from beyond the stars. Well, if you believe in like how the wall works, how the Great Green works, if there are orcs all the way out there in the stars, which there are, we know they came from off planet. If that innate desire to like that, the way the Greenskins have sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? They have a like a cultural memory where like they get memories from things they didn't do based on other Greenskins. This could be the only thing that's stopping the Greenskins from just advancing to a high, like we've talked about consistently.
And that's not quite what he's suggesting. He's suggesting that the signal that does the anti-tech thing comes from beyond the stars. So on a very local way, you could say, for example, that the main device that maintains it all is on Vedra. And Vedra sends a signal and it arrives here on this planet. That would be one very simple way of organizing that. And you know what? That could be all it's doing on the reception side. It's both receiving and then projecting out. And if it's doing that, it does suggest that the core tower would go all the way down, then spread out and be sent out by something, possibly going back up again and spreading outwards that way, or doing something down below. So for the actual building of the device, you probably find it's a big circular something down underneath because the signal comes down and flushes outwards. If you wanted to have the rainbow rock, you could have it all the way around this location too if you wanted, if that's how you think this place could manifest.
Jonathan King, thank you for the super chat. Okay, here's an idea. The inhibitor was there to keep tech on a steady flow, and they would receive orders from the old ones to either slow down progress or speed up the flow of tech. But then shit hits.
I quite like this as an idea, in that before the cataclysm, it was a device that had a job, and it got repurposed during the cataclysm to stop what was coming in. So it got repurposed during the cataclysm, and then obviously there's lots of fights. It all goes wrong. It breaks a little bit, and as time passes by, everyone forgets what it was originally there for.
Yeah, there would be a very cruel, I can imagine like a very cruel irony of like the Dawi that were meant to work on this thing, working on it, realizing what's about to go wrong. And like they have the knowledge of how it works, but as they see it going wrong, you have that one great ancient rune lord who goes, we're going to forget how this thing works. The way it's about to fire off, we're literally going to forget what we're doing. We're going to forget, and him having that realization for the wave just hits him.
Yeah, there could be a nice little bit where there's down in the heart of this location, there's lots of workshops that they used to use to carve all of the runes. So the runes weren't carved by runesmith, they were carved by devices that no longer work. So they have to start trying to figure out new ways of creating stuff that they were creating with machinery before, which means they're basically on a constant run against the very device that they're trying to maintain.
Oh, that's fun. Because that would make some of them like, that would be such a love-hate relationship with the thing you tie your identity to.
Yeah,
Oof.
yeah.
Oof. Matthew Adam, would they run into the utility problem if they are carving into a 2 space, i.e. try connecting 3 houses with 3 utilities can't be done on 2D paper? I have no idea what that means. That sounds like an engineering conundrum.
I don't know the utility problem is, so happy to admit my ignorance here. If someone can explain that in the chat, because it sounds like it could be a cool thing.
Don't have to do a super
I'm just
chat.
not sure what it is.
Do a regular chat.
Yeah, just because we watch every single message that comes in. It doesn't need to be a super chat. Just throw it in. If I see it, I'll bring it up.
Rush. They have a reverse engineer guild, which is what a lot of dwarves should have.
Yeah, I think
chasing.
I think that's a really cool thing as well. So this place here possibly has all manner of crazy shit, because we were discussing right at the beginning that this could be a high-tech location. It is. It's just none of the tech works. It's very possible there's fucking tanks down here. All sorts of crazy shit from the war that first started. Nothing works. The sky chariots that we're looking for. And instead, they've had to repurpose it all. And where they were using tech before, they're now using the great collars to try and control the local beasts to replace the fallen tech that no longer works. And there's possibly a rebel faction amongst them who's really for, we could just fucking fuck this thing up. And if the ancestor gods and everything they've handed down is like, no, and all the dwarves are like, no, but there's a faction of young dwarves who are like, I want to ride a fucking tank. Yeah, because that's these so things.
You could just see that some dwarves, especially when they're in eras of deep hardship, you could see there just being the dwarf being like, we could be the strongest power in the world. We could take back the golden era. We could do so much if we would just break this thing, and that could cause a full-on civil war.
Yeah,
at points in their history,
particularly if we're looking at this location as being the importance apparently that it has. It will be a target at different points, meaning that it's going to have been besieged at several points in the past, and they're going to have held off against it. This location for the dwarves that are in the area is going to be a constant. We have to rally and hold anything back from this. During the cataclysm, there's going to, when it got switched back on again and everything goes fucked up across the world and none of the tech starts working, all the fucking demons are going to be running for this bad boy. And that works quite well, given just how many fucking demons were kicking in around Lustria.
Oh, yeah.
So that works quite neatly. It gives another target for them to work on.
Yeah, I also really like, because this also gives them such a unique, complex relationship where they would have been allies and enemies at times with the other factions. Like the Amazons. Amazons would definitely have a relationship with these guys, considering the Amazons, as they were written for the White Dwarfers the last time they got a notable hit, they have Old One tech. They have it. And they are allegedly like weird immortal reincarnating ladies. But like you can imagine, they've dealt with these dwarves a fair number of times. The lizardmen would have had on and off again alliances with them. There would have been times the lizardmen would have worked with them. There would have been times there would have been.
I can see actual delegations. I can imagine a long delegation of lizardmen arriving, skinks carrying folks, and all the rest of it. And the dwarves just sitting there, sitting at the top, basically going no, and the lizardmen going, but we need this. We believe this. Look, the great plaques, and then them having a big mass, and then like fucking no, we'll go to war over this. This is ours.
Well, I would like imagining like if like for a lizardman temple city, you could almost imagine that there have been times where they've even like. Maybe successfully, maybe not, have like sent Old One Tech to these dwarfs to be like, fix this. We need this to be fixed.
Interesting. I quite like that too. So one thing you could have for this location is basically small runic fields that allow tech to work.
Ooh,
so some of the runic stuff they have allows tech to work in a very small located area. So, for example, you could slap on the side of a las pistol, which we know the Amazons basically have. They could slap a rune on the side of a las pistol, and that las pistol could work as a fucking las pistol. Artifacts of the old ones that actually can work because they are somehow granted a barrier from the barrier that stops them all working.
That gives them an incentive to have a relationship with the groups outside. Like there's something the Amazons have that the dwarves desperately want or need, and they have that trait.
Maybe the Amazons have been passed down something from Rig that allows them to individually keep the anti-tech field from influencing all of their equipment, meaning that they have their own religious things in place that allow them to do it, and some of those run out, some of them require trade. Basically, you make it a complicated thing.
That's so fun because that would also give the dwarves such a unique, stressful relationship with the lizardmen. Of like, you have the Slann who are almost impossible to talk to. Because they like the way they perceive time is super weird. The way they communicate is super weird. And you can imagine there are some dwarves that are like, we should get the Slann to help us. And there are other dwarves that are like, no, we don't need them. How dare you suggest that? But then you have the actual lizardmen, like the skink priests, who are incredibly superstitious and are messing with shit they don't understand and activating in really weird ways that would be super scary if you know how it works. Like it'd be like watching children handling a gun. Which is a really fun dynamic.
Just having a quick look here. If there's anything Caverns of the Great Bat, I'm going to look at all the things that are close by.
Yeah, so you got Caverns of the Great Bat, which Total War hilariously tied into a great massive set of like Terrorgeist. Or like the living version of Terrorgeist, which is like they would be very different creatures, but it is a great bat. So I suppose we've got. I do like that just south of the Skyfinger. A place I really like is Thrice Cursed Peak, which sounds very dwarfy.
Yeah, and it also says like something's going a bit wrong there, doesn't it?
Yeah, that almost sounds like a place that during the Cataclysm shit went tits up. Like maybe that's where the great battle where the demons were defeated happened, and it did not go well. Like maybe the demons were beat, but the cost was high.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll grab a couple of them. Necro player, and we can make a suggestion that these dwarves were the origin of the Sky Dwarfs or Age of Sigmar during after the end times.
Well, I would say the argument that the inhibitor is no longer there. The inhibitor was destroyed, so Age of Sigmar tech goes all over the place. And it
allows it to go all over the place too. And I'm not necessarily convinced that this would be the case because if you look at the Caradron Overlord background, they're just the dwarves that sort of were in that area and did their thing. They weren't necessarily a unique faction of their own already.
Yeah, they were more classic dwarfs that the transmutative and evolving properties of Shaman inspired them to evolve.
Yeah, so you could do this, but I don't feel a strong need to do this, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I agree.
Particularly given that we're still looking at least for this location, if not necessarily the civilization as a whole here, we're still looking at a pretty grounded place. This isn't a place where they're lifting up and flying off and doing shit. This is somewhere where it's all really quite grounded and local and really well defended in that they've got a bunch of weapons that are pretty much Old One weaponry, much like the Amazons have got Old One weaponry, and they've got runes attached to them that allow them to, upon activation of that rune, to activate the weapon. So the weapon is dead under most circumstances until the rune activates, the dwarf rune that does it, and then suddenly they've got themselves the equivalent of a pew 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 or something similar.
I really love that, because that would also mean that these are dwarves that would really be interested in dealing with like storms of magic, because storms of magic would potentially wake up a lot of stuff. You'd also have like they'd be similar to the lizardmen in some ways, of like there are devices that can be used in war, but they have to be dragged in by the runic controlled colored dinosaurs, where you got like dwarfs on the back activating this engine that does a thing that's like super bizarre and crazy. They would be very similar in some ways to the dwarfs we know, but also wildly different. Wildly different.
Yeah, this is seeming pretty cool. So we've got there's another one there from Dynaman.
Oh yeah. Now I'm imagining these dwarfs as the guys who do tech maintenance and IT support for the planet. In a way they kind of do, but they also have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that they may want, if we go back in time, all the way back to pre-Cataclysm era, when there was connecting points between all different parts of the old world and elsewhere. And yes?
Real quick, I love that Thrice Cursed Peak is like a place they used a weapon. And it's just,
I like that.
It's like the equivalent of like an actual Warhammer nuke was unleashed.
Okay, and all the stone around it is blackened.
Yeah.
And those that go up there get sick.
Like thrice cursed, because it is awful. Like it's worse than the Warpstone Desert. It is a truly terrible place.
Yeah, I quite like that. And what was I going to say? I've lost track of where I was. I had a little thing I was going to move. Oh, I remember. So they're so these are the dwarves that are connected, obviously, to the other dwarves over in the old world. And as we've said in previous streams, there's paths of the old ones all over the place. And we have had various theories as to what they were. But what we patch into one of our early theories from one of our earlier streams is that effectively the paths are the maintenance paths for all of the old world tech. And these are the dwarves that used to run them. The dwarves that used to run between all the paths that held all the holds together, and they used to run through these ancient paths of the old ones. And they're now all shut off because of the tech shut off they have. But it does suggest that these dwarves here could be the secret to properly opening them up without magic, because they could slap on the correct runes, and the old paths of the old ones that from the pre-cataclysm would suddenly power back up again with the energies drawn up from the geomantic web, which is effectively old one electricity, allowing them to tap into that. So we're basically dealing with geomantic engineers and runic engineers, those who can draw upon the geomantic web, use the geomantic web, and can also empower dead tech by placing the correct runes on it.
That's really funny to me as well, because that would allow them to subvert an expectation of meeting a dwarf that talks about being like a wielder of the power from beneath, and you're like, oh, they mean like lava magic, and they're like, nah, son, and they just unleash like old one tech crazy bullshit. You're like, oh my god.
Totally. Just bring up this comment with Devin. I sort of agree. It's been a fun stream. I've really loved this, but I'm a little sad we didn't get to explore Incan dwarfs. So am I, but we didn't go for the civilization option. We went for a single location. I would have loved to have explored Incan dwarves, or dwarves at least with Incan and perhaps Mayan and perhaps other Andean societies, all influencing them in a variety of ways to create something new and interesting, but we didn't go down that route.
Keep in mind that on the future schedule, we do have that we're going to do a person. So we're going to tap into that, though it'll be an individual, like a ruler, notable engineer or whatever.
We'll definitely be doing something.
Yeah, we'll definitely be doing something.
Which I'm particularly looking forward to, because we're building a fun, different version of anything I expected when we started this stream.
Yeah, this is actually pretty different from what, like, we kind of ended up accidentally stumbling into like, let's flesh out a location that's already on the map, which was not where we thought this would go at all in the slightest.
Not at all.
Dynaman, if you want a spooky Andean location for what Thrice Cursed Peak would look like, Valle de las Animas in Bolivia, with one change: those stone pillars were all dwarfs, lizardmen, and demons frozen in rock. Well, Andy's looking that up. I will say that the thing that this actually does really well for is you could do so many fun ideas here when it comes to like a roleplay experience of like, imagine being a party that like you end up in Lustria and you get I don't know, captured by a group of lizardmen, and a skink priest, due to a prophecy or a golden plaque or something, charges you, the party. They like give you an inert, not functioning thing. They just give you what looks like a bizarre scrap of metals, and they say, you have to take this to them. You take this to the dwarfs. They fix. You bring it back. The golden plaque says you must do this, and you get hooked. You get roped into a bonkers fucking adventure that is also terrifying because you're dealing with shit that your PCs have no idea what it is and what it's capable of, and if they should be handling it, which would be super fun.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I agree a lot. I think there's quite a lot of great utility here. So I'm not sure. Have we got anything else that we can vote on? Is there anything else you think that we need to pin down for this one? What we have so far, just so we have a very quick summary, is location inside the spine of Sotek, where dwarfs who have been in the area since the Cataclysm are maintaining a device of the old ones. A device of the old ones that is absolutely covered with runes top to bottom, and the dwarves have to get up to the top sometimes to deal with the runes that are broken. So they're going up to the top of this thing, which is hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of yards high. So they have to get up there somehow. So it's a fun location with dwarves with goggles on, desperately holding off against the winds as condors are flying by, big birds pecking at their beards, or whatever else it might be. And this great device is responsible for effectively inhibiting technology across the world. This device has broken down multiple times, and whenever it breaks down, there's a sudden technological increase across the world, but not that sudden because nobody really believes anything will work anyway. All of the scientific inquiries that they've made sort of don't work. So you tend to find it's gradual. It might take as much as 20, 30, 40 years, but individual engineers suddenly find that things spark, things work in a way that they didn't before. And the dwarves are back there trying to hammer it back into place. The truth of this and how it's working comes from elsewhere. This is a signal they receive. It's not even the runes themselves that are doing it, suggesting that this entire thing could be repurposed to do a completely different signal, which would be a super fun story in and of itself. As in, it could be used to send out a signal that enhanced tech, or fucked with magic, or did something different, or somehow holds back Morsley, or who knows? PCs in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay games are famous for coming up with stupid plans that involve locations just like this. It's pretty much designed for it. The dwarves themselves are a fractured group of different clans, all of whom are kind of held together by a presumable noble figure.
Yeah.
And this... Yeah.
Well, and I just wanted to add, we also have that thread that is causing conflict amidst them, where they believe there's some sort of prophetic message intended, but only if they get like the right configuration or parts of the tower aimed at the right point of the sky or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so each one of the different clans are repurposing the runes and trying out different things. Effectively, they're doing their own SETI project, where they're attempting to find aliens in the sky. They're attempting to find the great message that they've all believe is coming from their ancestor gods. They believe their ancestor gods will possibly return when they do the right mixture. And they all have different views as to how this can be done. And they're all given, like, you know, it's like any great dish. I don't know if you've seen any of the great dishes that receive signals from space. All the various astronomers who come along to do anything there, they get given like 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours to do their project. Then the next set of astronomers come in, and they're given so much time to point at the thing that's important to them. So they're all pointing this thing at different things at different points, each clan having their own
so
timing.
Fun. Because that also implies that in ancient times, like, that probably came to blood. Like, there was probably a fight, and they were like, all right, we're going to set down some rules. Everyone gets time with the controller. Calm down.
Yeah, it's a place. So we've got ourselves both a receiver and a sender, so to speak. Is there anything else that we need to vote on? Is there anything else that we think this place should have?
If there's anything that people want to throw out as ideas, I mean, we've also spoken about these guys have runic collars. that this is a place that's capable of controlling and producing them. It
Yeah,
has
and
production capabilities.
and their runic engineers are also capable. They're also all about trying to take the existing techie stuff and back engineer it. So this is at the forefront of not technology, but it's almost runic technology. And they have a bunch of runes that allow them to empower small things, not big things, small things for short periods of time, or possibly big things for a very short period of time. Like, for example, they've got big weapons that sit dead outside all around it, big huge weapons, and they can empower them for like 2-second bursts where they fire lasers or fire some equivalent down into anything that may be attempting to attack them. But that's it. If they do that and they hammer that into place, it won't work again for another 100 years. So they hold off using any of these weapons for as long as possible.
Yeah, Dinoman, so you mentioned the dishes. Those radio telescopes have big central pillars. I'm imagining the fingers right in the middle of a big bowl of the mountains themselves.
You know what? I think that's a really cool idea. So that
it's very cool idea.
It's in a big mountain, and maybe the entire dwarven hold, or the dwarven thing is all around it, and the pillar rises out the middle.
That's such a fucking hey.
That was a good one, Dynaman.
No wonder they couldn't allow fucking dragons anywhere.
And the entirety of that ring, all the way around, is ringed with dead weapons that are from the Cataclysm that have been maintained meticulously because they can, in times of great need, be fired. But to do so is to use up a very limited resource.
I would love it because you could just imagine like some lost explorer going through the mountains, and then he comes over a ridge and he just sees this great silver bowl with this weird giant pillar coming out and center up in the sky. He's like, "What the hell is that?" That's such a cool concept. That's good.
Yeah, I like that.
That's good. That's super fun.
Yeah, I like this. It's cool.
Jonathan King, thank you. Valea said it was my turn with the remote.
Yeah, so true.
Ricky Chapman, all the runes make up one massive room so gargantuan that it's reached into the unobservable realms. And it's functionally what it's doing.
Yeah. I really like this place. I was expecting, just so we know, before the stream went live, I was expecting us to do some sort of, dwarf, probably Incan dwarf thing, because I was expecting it probably win the dwarf, win the vote, pardon me, because there's been a lot of discussion about it in various places, and a lot of Total War fans are kind of intrigued as to what you could do here. So I was expecting us to dive into some sort of cultural thing. As it turns out, we have built one of the most important locations in the Warhammer world for explaining why the Warhammer world is the way it is. And ultimately, it dives back to the dwarf ancestor gods, what they were pretty much purposed to do by the old ones. This is their job. The dwarves are the maintainers of the old one tech. And they've got everything to their fingertips to change the world here, but none of them understand what they have, how it truly works, and there's so much bickering and proud dwarfs, each of which have got their own proud opinions.
Necroplayer, and while not for this stream, given the nature of the Khalid-esque hellscape that is the Lustrian jungle and Clan Pestilence existing, these dwarfs would have intense reverence for Valea. Yeah, they would.
Yeah, and I think that this place has probably been attacked repeatedly from below by Clan Pestilence as well.
Well, yeah, I think this place would have been attacked by entire Chaos hordes. Skaven, greenskins would have been drawn to it like flies to shit. Lizardmen would have attacked it several times just due to like their own understandings of like how things should go and like misunderstandings of plexes. The lizardmen can act very irrationally at times.
Oh yeah.
I imagine they would have had conflicts with the Amazons a few times, depending on like what you believe the military strength of the Amazons to be. There would have been humans that might have discovered and attacked this place, full expeditions. These guys would have, most people that would come here would not be welcomed. And the thing about the Warhammer world is it is a place where conflict is often the first option because it's Warhammer. So when people discover this place and go, I want to know what this is, or I want to use it, or I want to take it, or I want that shiny, look at all that shiny metal that bowl's made out of. I bet we could sell that back in Altdorf. And they try to mess with it or prise things loose. And the dwarfs are like, we're going to kill these fuckers. Like it is, they are trying to maintain something so important. And plus other things going on just for funsies. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay has established that the High Elves have actually established a notable fort over on the Turtle Isles, where they have been experimenting and doing things that are not being reported back to Ulthuan, which if you tie back into this, maybe the High Elves know what's going on here, and there is a sect of High Elves that's trying to fuck with it.
Yeah, possibly.
You've got
to tie into the old legends of South Americas, you could also have inside the basin, you could have a lot of the blocked off circuits of runes, all blazing in gold, because of the amount of shaman that's working towards them.
Because it would just take one survivor who makes it out, spread them.
This is, in some respects, a source of one potential myth of a great city of gold. So you could have the great networks of shaman that are required to power this thing, glowing golden down here, a source of great potential wealth, which will make it a source of, well, people are going to attack it just purely for the gold that's here, and they need the gold, have mined the gold because of its utility with shaman.
Yeah, there are other interesting enemies nearby. Of like the Blood Hall has been heavily established by Total War and seems to be reinforced as a Dark Elf fortress that watches over Lustria and is where the Dark Elves launch some of their attacks. That's very close by in the grand scheme of things. You've got all sorts of things in those jungles, like the fact that you've got the Cursed Jungle and the Forbidden Jungle next to each other. There's something unpleasant in those jungles.
What are you saying, Hardcore?
Let's see. Hardcore. These dwarfs would use the control runes to have Skaven slaves, then use an altered rune placed on them, return to the Skaven armies, making them suicide Skave drones as they explode.
So, my first thought on this was no, and then I went, oh. So if we're using the concept of runic control collars, and we have ourselves a bunch of dwarves who do take slightly non-standard routes. Yeah, I possibly they do capture and send back, not necessarily to explode, but potentially to monitor, to watch, to do a variety of things you wouldn't expect.
That would this would be like a dwarf culture that has the potential to have like notable spy networks.
Yeah. Plus, you've one of the great pulp things that is often used with the great jungle folks, which are often terrible stories from the 40s and the 50s, that used other civilizations as great bad guys to just generally steal all their stuff and kill them. But often these ancient groups would have infiltrators who had infiltrated into society and attempted to stop folk from getting their stuff. And this would be a good way to get potential infiltrators. There was, back in the old versions of Warhammer, the Slann used to use, I can't even believe I'm going to draw on this, but human slaves, pygmies, but they used human slaves of a variety of kinds. And this could be almost a version of that, where they've infiltrated colonies from far away to basically monitor them and make sure that the great secrets of their cities of gold are not discovered.
Yeah, that also invites an interesting bit of conflict of you have the dwarves not only able to monitor, but like kind of send adventuring parties to deal with threats that they don't want to deal with. Like, oh, there's a rising war boss in this part of the jungle. Let's have one of our controlled agents like spread rumors that there's a lost city of the lizardmen there, or there's some great golden thing. Like, they're manipulating and kind of using people in a way that we're not used to seeing dwarfs do, which would be a very unique and fun way for them to be expressed.
Just bringing up this one because you're suggesting silver. Oops, got the original comment. Still, silver is there a city of gold, because silver metal is old one shit. It's not the only thing that old ones do, but old ones have got loads of jade, loads of gold. It runs through Lizardman society. Stuff that's just silver is often noted as old one, particularly when you got in silver ships. They came in similar, but it's not the only one they have. Silver is not a core component for how runes and magic works within Warhammer. So if we did that, we'd be basically saying they're using an older tech, and that's okay.
It could be that it's a great Grommerl bowl, and whoever discovered it didn't understand what Grommerl was.
Sky Silver, because Sky Silver
like,
also exists.
Sky Silver, yeah,
exactly. But if you're wanting to elicit the greed, then it should be gold. And if you're wanting to pull upon the old tales of the cities of gold that lie down in the South Americas, then gold seems to be a better thematic choice. Plus, using Shaman and its need for gold to build those great circuits that eventually turn into the runic base, probably slightly better.
Rainbows are super important to the Inca, so I could see a permanent cone rainbow pulsing in and out of the top of the pillar. But if you're going with the idea that we've kind of talked about where the pillar runs significantly on magic, you can almost see it like if there's a part of it that's almost like siphoning the winds, there's so much of it, and almost like you can see the 8 colors like casting off light in a really weird way, which would be super freaky for people that normally don't have the sight if they're able to see it in any way, shape, or form. Hound of Il Omen, the end times were kicking off a formation. Oh, the end times were kicking off. A formation of runes was found, and the hold suddenly disappeared when the magic began to flood into the world. Then the Age of Sigmar. Oh, if you wanted to bring them into, there's like a million gajillion different ways you could bring them into AOS if you wanted to. Like,
and this would fit perfectly into AOS.
Yeah, like you could literally just snap your finger and just teleports them. Ricky Chapman, the city is made of platinum. Platinum would be unlikely. I don't think it's the best material to use. It'd be a lot of stone and various components of metal.
I'm quite happy with it looking quite high tech-ish, but with pulsating magic running through it in the same way that the Lizardman cities look kind of sort of high tech-ish.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. Platinum, the problem with it for eliciting that greed, that El Dorado city of gold feel that you're looking for, is that it doesn't look that much different to many other metals, and no one's going to go, I want that. That's not something that's going to cause the great greed of a Tillian king to say, oh yeah, we found a city that appears to be made of gold. Well, go get it for me, please. Thanks. Yeah. That gives you a reason to have a ship sail halfway around the world to try and secure it and bring back several treasure ships. It goes all the way back to Estalia.
It actually could be kind of funny if the sun reflecting off and back at the guy who's like, it's all gold, and there's actually no gold.
Or in many respects, you could actually take all of it. The platinum, the silver. If we go back to the silver from the old ones, why? Because it's shaman circuits. It's glowing yellow because of the shaman. But the actual metal itself, when the shaman is taken out of it, it's none of those metals. Arguably a more useful metal, but none of it's gold at all, and it just all powers down, and the city isn't gold at all. I think there's a fun story in that.
That would be like a hilarious ending to a short story. As a guy has been through so much, he finally gets there, he chunks a piece out, he's like, this gold is as big as my head, and then it just turns out to not be that, and then he hears the dwarfs coming for him, and that's the end of the story. That would be that'd be a good comical.
It's not a city of gold at all, it just appears to be one. Yeah, I think that works slightly better. So yeah, it's cool.
I believe it's outro time.
Yeah, so the outro for this one is pretty easy.
Awesome. This is I
think we have made a truly awesome location. What we've done is we've looked at Warhammer as a whole, and we've gone, where is it not making sense? And we have patched one of the big ones. Why is tech the way it is? Why did we do that? Right at the beginning of the stream, we discussed it. And what we have got here is a pre-cataclysm device of the old ones that was created by dwarfs at the command of the ancestor gods, in turn at the command of the old ones. And this great device was presumably, before the cataclysm, used to help control the flow, the ebb and flow of technology across the Warhammer world and possibly beyond. It may have had a far broader set. It might have gone past Mansleep, possibly over to Vedra and local planetary systems. It was used by the old ones to control technology alongside the magics that they were using. Then the cataclysm came, and the entire device is repurposed. probably by the dwarfs, who realize that they can do something different with this, and they can hold off against the great demons that are carrying tech and other demonic engines, and they can properly inhibit them. But in so doing, it also inhibits many of the devices that are around the world that they can use. But they are relying upon different forms of tech to hold off against the enemies, because they themselves can keep their tech running because they know how to do it. So they gain all of the advantages and none of the disadvantages. And that then turns into the uncounted centuries as we then eventually arrive towards the modern day, where what we've got is one gigantic tower inside a great bowl that is receiving signals from elsewhere. And this entire thing can move when the correct runes are put in place with a grinding, but it's slow. And all of the individual clans that live here have all got their own conflicting views as to what should be done with it. And probably time here is marked in the different targeting of it. As in, for the last 400 years, no, last 40 years, it's been pointing this way. The next clan is taken over and it's pointing it somewhere else, as they've all got their own individual claims as to what exactly it should be doing. Occasionally, this gigantic machine breaks. And when it breaks, technology across the world has got an opportunity to rise. And if it breaks during one of the great end time potential events, when a never chosen rises, then we end up with demonic machines far more powerful than they would have been otherwise. So that's something that the ruinous powers themselves will be very keen to bring to pass. It's also something that holds the orcs back, because the orcs, as we've noted, the greenskins in particular, all of them are 40k's orcs, except when they're not. But they are. But 40k's orcs build shit. They build all sorts of shit. And it works. And it often shouldn't work. Their field technology is unlike any other species technology. They're capable of projecting shit all over the place. But for some reason, Warhammer orcs aren't capable of doing this. And the answer for why is here. And of course, it's the dwarfs that are holding them back. Because it should be. These dwarves are also, to cut a long story short, the ones who are responsible for maintaining the vast network of machines that were spread around the old world, around the whole Warhammer world, in fact. They weren't the ones that were responsible for potentially using them. We've noted that the Lizardmen were responsible for parts of that. Humanity is responsible for a large part of that. Go check our Albion stream. We discussed that in our Albion stream. The dwarves are the maintenance engineers. They're the ones keeping everything running. And in some respects, it's possible there was humans here originally. And that there was originally human priests and human engineers that used to actually run this place. But they're all dead now. All that remains is dwarfs. And these dwarves use their runic technology to effectively keep this place running. I've missed out tons there because I was too busy being excited about the idea. Anything else you'd add on to that, Ryan?
Just that we also talked about that this is a place where they produce forms of high tech that's potentially traded and or used against various forces around them. They likely would have a strong relationship with the Amazons. They would have a series of... we didn't, of course, just talk about this place. We also established that it's not just them. They've got holds and other establishments all over the spine of Sotek Mountains, all the way up and down it. We just didn't focus on that. They've got a runic collar system they use to control the great mighty beasts of the jungle around them.
This is a small idea. We're going with the idea that the metal is the circuits. Perhaps the runic collars are literally hammered into their flesh.
That's horrifying. Great.
So they hammer it into the flesh of their beasts of burden, of the big beast that they capture, and they hammer the runes into place, and they light up golden when they're being used. But that means that you can hide them inside other societies. So that means that, you know, a human who gets captured gets a bunch of runes hammered into his neck, and then he wears a high collar and won't be spotted. And then he obviously goes and does something that's really dodgy as part of an adventure. And the PC party find him, kill him inevitably, and then find he's got a bunch of weird golden runes around his neck. And that's cool. Yeah, that's super cool.
We talked about all sorts of things like that the broken shores of the Western Insulation are created by a great tsunami, perhaps during the Cataclysm, when this thing perhaps misfired. Thrice Cursed Peak is perhaps where a great weapon detonated that absolutely ruined it. We also discussed aspects of that with the I lost my train of thought, but ultimately,
As did I.
A very Incan-inspired culture that lives among the peaks of the mountains with these great towering walls and edifices along the tops of the peaks, especially. Oh, now I remember what it was. That very possibly there is some great story with the primordial dragons here. Of that, while the dwarves may have been used to help wipe out the dragons of Lustria, they may also have captured one. Maybe there is like a great primordial dragon who helps this structure
possibly
the
roomed up as well.
Yeah, function that's buried in the absolute depths or at the absolute peak of this structure, like one of the ancient like good old Calgalanos the Black like type of dragon. All sorts of crazy bizarre stories. You know, the fact that it's the spine of Sotek Mountains, perhaps there's something to do with Sotek, a myth involving the great serpent that ties into this. You know, the lizardmen have all this bizarre control over the snakes of Lustria to an extent even more so than the dinosaurs and stuff. Perhaps there is a relationship between these dwarfs and the great mighty Sotek and why the serpents are able to be controlled seemingly effortlessly. Maybe there's something there. All sorts of fun things. But ultimately, we had fun.
Yeah, I really like this place. In fact, I like this place so much, there's a small part of me that wants to write it up, but it'll take too much time, and I don't have time. But I really like this one. It's really cool.
You know, that makes me think of Hawk's earlier comment. Don't let Gerhardt anywhere near this fucking place. Keep him as far away as possible. He would doom the world.
Go watch Lawhammer if you don't know what that means.
All right, last few super chats before we get out of here. Necroplayer, though the Spanish conquistadors were almost famous for dumping tons of platinum into the ocean, calling it useless fake silver. Yeah, the bunch of goofballs. Yeah, which you can absolutely see that would be like another way that story is they think this place is a great golden city. They take some out, the shaman stops flowing. They're like, oh, this is all useless shit. Not realizing
and
they're holding.
Isn't.
Yeah, they're like holding some of the most priceless metal in the world. Donovan, one last important note about the culture of these dwarves. They likely have supreme super weapon over those of the old world. Potatoes! Even though Warhammer definitely has established that somehow, some way, there are potatoes all over the old world.
Yes, there is. Potatoes are sadly in the old world, but then given that the new world has been discovered for over 1,000 years, it's not that much of a surprise.
That's true. Cole Patterson, Incas had a spy on the Spanish. Didn't do great. Well, he wasn't...
and further, we're not using real world history here as the inspiration. What we're using is the pulp stories from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s for inspiration. I've forgotten the name of it. That'll come back to me. The story that I was thinking on.
Oh, there you go. Jonathan Kane, there's just a button akin to a self-destruct that has an orc skull on it. It's the brief.
Doc Savage. Doc Savage would very much have that sort of storyline in it.
There you go. Yes. The self-destruct button basically being orcs go wild is cool. And that would have been so fun because that would have been like in the actual end times, you would have had the orcs suddenly developing. The greenskins would have like suddenly been unleashing such bizarre things, which is what should have happened if the greenskins were going to be interesting during the end times, but they weren't. Sad.
Yeah, they weren't.
Hound of Ill Omen, human rune priest of a tech priest.
In some respects, yes, and they've already been pitched as that in Albion.
Yes.
So what Albion's original human priests that were running the machines of the old ones over there were doing. So this would be just taking that existing piece of lore and slotting it into Lustria and making sense of humanity, because unlike the original Warhammer lore where it said humanity was not really uplifted by the old ones in the same way, and then it sort of got repitched and they said, no, it was right at the very end for cataclysm reasons. And then it got repitched again, to which they said, no, they've always been uplifted. The ones who were done in the cataclysm were the ogres and the halflings, and potentially others. The story has shifted multiple times, but the stories that currently sit says humanity was uplifted by the old ones long before the cataclysm, and they were the ones that were responsible for running a lot of the old ones' shit.
Yep. Gaston, kind of funny how we started with more advanced dwarfs, but now we are making the global orb of confusion.
That also amused me.
Donovan, also last minute, snakes were important to the Inca. It's on their flag.
Yeah, and the snakes in many respects have been picked up by the lizardmen, so it would be, I think, not necessary to duplicate that through into the dwarfs that we're building here. There's lots of other things that we can draw from inspiration, rather than trying to take everything that real world peoples in that area had and port it over. You're taking some inspirations, some fun stuff, and spinning new tales with it.
Yeah, if we were sitting down and genuinely developing these guys, we've had a lot of great inspirations, but I would look at like 85 to 90% of suggests and be like, okay, you could take like maybe this word or maybe this kind of little concept, you have to shave the rest. Because they're not the Incans. They're the spine of Sotek dwarfs, which are very different.
They are. That was cool.
Hound of Ill Omen, our last super chat, human rune priest or tech priest.
He did it twice. Oh. I mean, thanks. I'll take it.
Where's the Albion script? If you look up like Lorebeards Albion, you'll find it.
If it's not, it was one of the later ones, Albion, as I recall. So it might not be up in the Lorebeards channel, but it will be on the Lorebeards channel within the next month or two. If not, just type Lorebeards Albion into YouTube, and it's either on the Lawhammer channel or the Loremaster of Sotek channel.
Yeah, it's somewhere. All right. So at some point, we have also promised, I should add at the end of this, that we will be doing a character from this culture, this place. I don't know when exactly we're going to do it. It'll be sometime soonish. Probably before the end of the summer.
On that was Joe Numbers, wasn't it? Just double check. So Joe, if you are out there, ping us over inside the Discord channel if you've got anything that you would like to see particularly done with that, because you were the one that offered this one, and we are more than happy to be led by your preferences here. So if you'd like to see a character that's based in here, get in contact with us and say, I'd love to see a character that's based in this place and perhaps is the equivalent of the king or the queen that runs this place, perhaps a high-tech crazy dwarf who's got a whole bunch of cool shit that only works when the runes are activated. If you want to do that, let's do that. If you'd like to do something else, tell us.
Yeah, just just add us in the Lorebeards Discord.
Yeah, totally.
That'd be great. But that brings us to the end of today's stream. Thank you all very, very much for all the support. Y'all were really, really excited about this prompt, which is great.
It's cool. I really love this one. Thanks, all.
Yeah, this went in a very different direction than I was anticipating. But all right. Thank you all very much for being here with us. We appreciate your time and your support. As a quick reminder, it's Tuesday. So tomorrow, 40k Lorebeards, Friday, Lawhammer.
Oh.
Saturday.
Shirar get through the Eternal is the name of this episode.
Ooh, the big bad. The big bad himself.
Oh
no! Saturday, Rookery and more 40k. And then Sunday, Talea.
Talea, we're finally doing it. Talea is coming.
And I have my intro that is Google translated English to Italian, typed out and ready to go. And it's going to be horrible for everyone, but a promise is a promise.
I'm looking forward to it immensely.
35 entries. I don't know how they're going to do that in 3 hours. Dear God.
35?
That good luck to them. The Psyker tier list, I feel like they are going to crash and burn trying to get through that.
I mean, they might do it well.
They're gonna have to haul ass, but all right.
Wow. I mean, 35 over, so that's what, like 20. No, it's not too bad. It's only about 12 per hour, which is what, 6 minutes each per one, and drop it to 5. So 5 minutes each per one. You could do that.
No intro, no outro, just
I mean, you just have to dive straight in and go, right, this one is this, what'd you rate it? Right, this was this, what'd you rate it? You just have to bang through it. But yeah, you can do it.
I mean, maybe I hope they do. I wish them the
maybe
best
they just do. I mean, if we were doing it, it would be a 12-hour stream.
Yeah. We have like a hard 12 or less limit.
because we're bad at not over talking at all.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, thanks very much, all. You kick ass. It was a lot of fun. This is not at all what I expected us to be making, but I am super delighted that we did, because I think you've all created something that Warhammer sort of needed, and it gives a lovely answer to a host of the weird issues that Warhammer has, and you've done it in a way that feels super Warhammer and also super dwarfy too. So yeah, thanks all. You kick ass.
Yep. Cannot thank y'all enough. I am going to send y'all over to hang out with Vera, to hang out with her in the post stream. So you got more stuff to watch, and I will be back later tonight with some more streaming after I have dinner and stuff, if you're interested in seeing that. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.